Chapter 405. In the club. Luaccio didn't look at Black Soul Number 9's reaction, but stood up and walked inside, saying, "Number 9, follow me." Hearing the boss's words, Black Soul Number 9 was a little confused, but despite his doubts, he still obediently followed behind his boss. Miss May didn't follow him, but just did her work as usual. She was very obedient and didn't ask anything. But before Black Soul Number 9 left the lobby, he felt a burning gaze from a guy who was hung up in the corner of the lobby. The reason why Black Soul Number 9 paid attention to this guy was that, strictly speaking, this guy was brought up by him. TNZ kept blinking at this Black Soul envoy whom he first met and followed, as if he was saying, "Master Number 9, please put in a good word for me in front of the master, and let me down." But Black Soul Number 9 turned around indifferently, as if he didn't see it. Black Soul Number 9 didn't dare to stay too long. Then he quickened his pace and followed the boss closely. However, he didn't dare to overtake or lag too far behind. Every step he took was very precise. The location was the basement of the club. In the depth of this room, full of storage cabinets, there was the boss's exclusive desk. Luaccio sat down and pushed a stool in front of him slightly. "Sit down." "I don't dare," Luaccio said. "You don't dare, or you don't want to." Black Soul Number 9 gave a start, thinking about the meaning of his new master's words. But he still couldn't figure out the boss's thoughts, no matter the current one or the former one. "Then I'll overstep." Black Soul Number 9 calmly accepted the boss's invitation, nodding and sitting down directly. Luaccio opened the drawer of the desk, taking out an envelope and pushing it to Black Soul Number 9. "Take this, there's something inside. I think you can help me collect some information about it." Black Soul Number 9 was stunned. He took the envelope with both hands. Of course, there were many things that he didn't understand. Theoretically, there was nothing that the boss of the club couldn't get. Even if he was the new boss and didn't have a rich family, it was still not something that the Black Soul envoy could guess. What was it that required the Black Soul envoys to search for? Luaccio thought for a while and said, "Since I took over the club, including TNZ, I've seen a total of 3 Black Soul envoys. The rest of the Black Soul envoys were still on vacation, but I didn't plan to wake them up for the time being. Also, I've seen number 18. Black Soul Number 9 didn't dare to say anything. "I think you're more suitable for it." Luaccio smiled and said, "I'm not sure if the thing I asked you to find is easy to find. Perhaps it will be easy for you to meet them, but it may also be difficult. However, as a reward, I will agree to your previous request." Black Soul Number 9 couldn't keep calm, but he nodded heavily. "Master, please rest assured. I will do my best. I like your attitude." Luaccio nodded. "Go ahead. Open the envelope after you leave this city. You'll know what to do next." Black Soul Number 9 was a very practical type. He nodded and stood up, turning into a cloud of black fog. But when he was about to leave, he suddenly stopped. "Is there anything else?" Luaccio asked curiously. The black smoke of Black Soul Number 9 paused for a while, and then said in a low voice, "Master, don't use the power given to you by the club if you can. You have a lot of Black Soul envoys and Yi. We can all be your arms." Luaccio looked at the changing black fog quietly. It kept changing, as if it was revealing the waves in Black Soul Number 9's heart. "I will," Luaccio replied softly. "Then I'll go now." The black fog left the first level of the basement. It didn't stop and went out the door. Luaccio didn't leave the warehouse immediately, but pondered alone. It suddenly occurred to him that although Black Soul Number 9 was ranked 9th, he was actually the last Black Soul envoy transformed by the former boss. Along the way, Black Soul Number 9 didn't stop, but went straight to the edge of the city. When he passed by a big house, he took a look. He took a look at the courtyard of the big house. There was an old woman sitting quietly on a rocking chair, covered with a woolen blanket, and quietly reading a book. Finally, he came to the edge of the city. Black Soul Number 9 opened the envelope in his hand and saw what was inside, a map. It was the most common map of China, which could be bought on the streets. Black Soul Number 9 frowned. After careful study, he found a small red dot on the map. Place name, Jinggang. Mountain? The professor's name was Trev, an Australian from the other side of the ocean. Wang Yuechuan saw Professor Chui Fo in the airport. He wore a pair of round glasses and was a little balding. Not only among Westerners, but even among Easterners, Professor Chui Fo was relatively short. He carried a simple leather suitcase and wore a suit that seemed to be a size bigger than his body. He looked a little funny, but he could answer Wang Yuechuan's question. "Hello, Professor Trev. I'm Wang Yuechuan." "Hello, Mr. Wang Yuechuan." Professor Trev nodded. "No need to be polite. I can't wait to see the ancient book you mentioned." This old professor was probably a person who was passionate about his scientific research all his life. Wang Yuechuan just contacted him according to the method given by his friend. After briefly talking about the ancient book, the professor directly flew over from Neon. It seemed that he directly stopped his exchange activities in Neon. "Professor Trev, please come with me." Wang Yuechuan was also a person who pursued efficiency. He hit it off with the old professor and directly left the airport. Of course, the place to go was definitely not the police station, but the apartment that Wang Yuechuan temporarily rented here. "Professor, are you okay?" In the car, Wang Yuechuan frowned and asked when he saw Professor Trev's forehead full of sweat. Professor Trev shook his head and said, "Nothing. I haven't adapted to the climate of China and Japan. I watched the weather forecast when I came here, but it doesn't seem to be very accurate." Wang Yuechuan didn't care and said casually, "The weather is a bit abnormal recently." As soon as he spoke, he heard the sound of thunder on a clear day. Wang Yuechuan subconsciously lowered his head and looked at the distant sky through the windshield. It seems that there is a storm again. A pet hospital that was not well known in the circle of human society, but had a great reputation in another circle, closed early today, as usual. However, the other door had already been opened. Uncle Rat Monster, who was born to adapt to the sewers but often ate the wrong things, was shocked by the scene in the pet hospital as soon as he entered the door. Uncle Rat Monster patted his clothes on his shoulder. His clothes were wet due to the sudden heavy rain. "Little butterfly, what did you do today? Why are there so many patients?" Wasn't it? It was full of monsters inside and outside. Moreover, these demons were all slumped on the ground as if they had nothing left to live for. It was as if they had been ravaged thousands of times. Little Butterfly, who was busy, trotted over, stroked her hair that was slightly wet with sweat, and blinked. "Uncle Rat Monster, don't you know?" "Know what?" The little butterfly monster said, "Since yesterday, we've started a free physical examination for everyone." "Free?" Uncle Rat Monster obviously only noticed the word free and said with a look of disbelief, "Lord Long will do things for free? My God!" Luo Dance smiled awkwardly. "It's not Sister Long, it's Sister Zijuan who said that. She said that she wanted to make a contribution to the monster world, so she helped everyone to do the physical examination." "Zijuan?" Uncle Rat Demon was stunned for a moment, and then he asked doubtfully, "Is that the ba that Master Long always says is a freeloader? Does she have medical skills? Is it okay?" "It should be okay." Luo Dance thought for a while and subconsciously looked back. Through the glass of the medical room, she could see that Su Zijuan was wearing a white gown that didn't fit her at all and was familiarly fiddling with the tools in the medical room. Obviously, this was Long Shua's gown that she took directly. "It should be." Uncle Rat Monster looked doubtful, but after looking at the crowded city of monsters, he thought for a while and suddenly said, "Well, can I also do the examination?" "Yes." Sister Zijuan said that as long as you are a monster, it's okay. Oh, Uncle Rat Monster narrowed his eyes and rubbed his hands. Lord Long is famous for being stingy, and there's never such a good thing as a free examination. It seems that it's good that she's not here recently. Come on, what should we do first? Little Butterfly thought for a while and said, "Oh, let's draw blood first." "Blood test." "Okay, no problem." Uncle Rat Monster nodded, but immediately his face changed slightly, and he said in a trembling voice, "Well, why is the syringe so big?" Sister Zijuan said that to draw more blood, the test will be more clear. Luo Dance thought for a while and said, "Rat Demon." Uncle Rat Demon sighed in his heart. He felt that he probably knew what the free physical examination was all about. What was going on with the other demons here, who looked like they had nothing to live for after being raped? Chapter 406. At this time, Su Zijuan's voice came from the medical room. Next one, come in. Don't waste time. Uncle Rat Monster suddenly trembled and said subconsciously, well, I suddenly remember that I have something to do, so I won't have a physical examination today. Uncle Rat Monster hurriedly waved his hand and retreated. When he reached the back door, he directly opened it and ran out without looking back. Hey, Uncle Rat Monster. Medicine. It was a pregnancy-stabilizing medicine for Aunt Rat Demon. Don't you want it? Luo Dance's voice came from behind. Another day. Uncle Rat Monster answered without even turning his head. Who would dare to stay here any longer? They would only be at peace if a large tub of their blood was drawn. As the saying goes, don't be afraid of thieves stealing, but be afraid of thieves thinking about you. If there was a chance that his blood type was suitable for the drought demon's appetite, it would be terrible. Uncle Rat Monster didn't think that his small body could support the appetite of a drought demon, although this drought demon only had half blood. Dad is back. Rat Monster returned home at night. It was not a big place, but it was very suitable for living. Of course, it was only suitable for Rat Monster. Because it was a dark and damp basement, ordinary people would feel uncomfortable living here. But for rat monsters, it was the best living environment because below the basement, there was a sewer pipe that connected the city in all directions. Rat Monster's wife with a big belly poured a cup of tea for Rat Monster and asked him to sit down. Have you eaten? I picked up some canned luncheon meat in the afternoon. You're pregnant, so don't run around. Uncle Rat Monster looked at his wife reproachfully. Even so, the tenderness in his eyes couldn't be concealed. At this moment, Uncle Rat Demon's group of children immediately threw themselves at him. The whole family was happy and harmonious. This was a good time to wash away the tiredness of the day. Yes, it should. However, Uncle Rat Monster's mood had changed slightly. Dad, I want a new toy. Dad, can I buy a new pencil case? I have used it for more than a year. Daddy, hubby, this month's electricity bill is a little high. A sense of helplessness like that of a middle-aged man began to spread from Uncle Rat Monster's body, making him sigh inwardly. Although rat demons were demons that were more suitable for living in cities, they were not much better off than other demons. Originally, rat demons were cowardly by nature and had limited demonic powers. They had always been at the bottom of the demon race. This rat monster had always abided by Long Shirua's rules and lived peacefully in this city. Although he could not earn much money, he was able to support his family of more than a dozen people. However, recently, Uncle Rat Monster began to worry. Not only was there going to be a new member of the family soon, but the other children of the family were also starting to grow up, spending money like water. Uncle Rat Monster starts to feel that his meager salary as a city pipeline worker is not enough to make ends meet. Later that night, Uncle Rat Monster tossed and turned in bed. He was very agitated, so he put on his shoes and went out. It was still raining outside, but for Uncle Rat Monster, it was not an inconvenience to go out because he walked through the underground pipeline of the city. Soon after, Uncle Rat Monster came to an old factory park in the city. This place had been abandoned, and many factories had been emptied. The various apartments built here in the early years were not many people living here. Uncle Rat Monster walked through many factories and then came to a place where all the doors and windows were closed. He quickly knocked on the door several times. Soon after the door opened, a slim boy with smoky makeup on his face appeared in front of Uncle Rat Monster. Then there were all kinds of noises inside, which directly shook Uncle Rat Monster's eardrums. Inside, there were music, psychedelic lights, and all kinds of smells. Uncle Rat Monster took a deep breath and spat out a bead from his mouth, giving it to the boy. The boy with smoky makeup thought about the bead in his hand and then smiled. Welcome. Uncle Rat Monster couldn't wait any longer as he lowered his head and walked in. He felt that his nerves were much more relaxed at once. Listening to the loud music that seemed to be able to shake the soul, Uncle Rat Monster felt like he was enjoying a full-body massage. He felt that his bones were also beating with the rhythm. Humans had places to seek stimulation and relaxation. So did monsters. Therefore, this was the place for monsters to drink and chat to release pressure, Elysium Bar. Of course, Uncle Rat Monster didn't come here often. After all, the consumption here was not money, but monster power. The bead he spat out before entering was condensed to monster power, which was the entrance fee here. The environment of the city was not good. It was more difficult for monsters to accumulate monster power than to make money. Therefore, for this middle-aged Uncle Rat Monster, he could only come here once in a month or two. Uncle Rat Monster walked towards the bar counter. He just wanted to drink here to drown his sorrows. He didn't want to spend anything else here. At this moment, on the dance floor in the center of the Elysium bar, a very young woman was swinging her body wildly. Wearing hot pants and a vest, accompanied by the hot music on the dance floor, her every movement was full of temptation. Below the dance floor, some of the demons who had slightly revealed the special features of the demon race because of their drunkenness cheered even more passionately. A cup of fiery salamander. Uncle Rat Monster sat down and withdrew his gaze from the dance floor. He propped his legs on the bar counter and looked at the bartender, a boar monster. Is this the new dancer? I haven't seen her before. What's her background? Her? The boar bartender poured the red liquid into the cup and said, She's not a dancer. Like you, she's here to have fun. But I don't know what her background is. According to the rule here, we don't ask about guest backgrounds. Really? Uncle Rat Monster shrugged. He drank the fiery salamander wine and narrowed his eyes, clicking his tongue in amazement. But this girl is really hot. What? You're such a coward. You dare to have ideas? The boar bartender disdainfully said, I'm not against you. Look at the dance floor. 8 out of 10 people want to have ideas about her, but they are all well-behaved. They only dare to look, but don't dare to move. Oh, Uncle Rat Monster stretched his neck. He liked to listen to gossip. The boar bartender came closer and said seriously, I only know that she appeared in this half a year. She came here once or twice. Including today, it's the 3rd time. It's not surprising that you haven't met her before. But this girl is not easy to deal with. Just like last time, there's a reckless person who went to harass her. But what do you think happened afterwards? What happened? The wild boar bartender suddenly put an ice bucket in front of Uncle Rat Monster heavily as he pointed at the ice inside. Look, it's like this. It's been turned into ice and will break into pieces the moment you touch it. Uncle Rat Monster immediately shrunk his neck. He was at the lowest level of monster power, so he had a lot of scruples when hearing such a sharp-form monster. Directly turned into ice. What kind of monster is she? The boar bartender shrugged and said, I don't know, but I heard that her name is Lizzie. Uncle Rat Monster nodded and remembered the name. He didn't ask more, but lowered his head and began to think about his real purpose of coming here. A monster and drinking alone. One more glass. After only 10 minutes, Uncle Rat Monster was already a little drunk and finished 5 glasses of fiery salamander wine in front of him. You seem to have something on your mind? The boar bartender asked curiously while wiping the glasses. Uncle Rat Monster raised his head and gave him a smile. He burped and said, You don't understand. You don't understand. You don't understand. Tell me. Uncle Rat Monster shook his head and said, I want to ask you a question. Tell me. Burp. Tell me, is there any way to make a lot of money, quickly and safely without breaking Lord Long's rules? The bartender suddenly approached and whispered, There are many ways to make money quickly and safely, but there are not many ways to make money without breaking Lord Long's rules. Uncle Rat Monster was stunned and said drunkenly, Not many. How many? Chapter 407. My master shaves her leg hairs in the bathroom every day. Alas, that's nothing. I'm even worse. My master's armpit stinks, but she always likes to lift me up. That's nothing. My master sometimes puts strange condoms in my private part and asks me to stab it hard. Inside the pet hospital, the cats, huskies, and other pets waiting for treatment were complaining to each other. Of course, they were complaining to each other in their beast language. Actually, they were just barking and meowing sounds. The owners thought that their pets were happy to see so many friends. But Luo Dance, the nurse here, could understand them. Would it be bad to tell these customers the real meaning of their pets? What was the strange condom? The little butterfly monster was worried about this problem. Even so, Luo Dance, the nurse, was not careless about her job. She could understand the language of these little animals, so she could treat them well. It was much easier to treat the problems of these pets than to treat another kind of customer. Dance, someone is looking for you outside. A female customer pointed to the outside of the treatment room. Luo Dance turned her head and saw a small head looking up from the glass window with a pitiful look. Luo Dance was stunned. She had a good memory and recognized that this child was actually Uncle Rat Monster's son, while the eldest son, Cheese. But Luo Dance not only saw Uncle Rat Monster's eldest son, Cheese, but also his wife, Shu Xiao Shu. At the back door of the pet hospital, Luo Dance closed the door and said in surprise, "He's gone." The female rat monster with a big belly nodded and said worriedly, "Yes, after he went out last night, he didn't come back this morning. I called him, but he couldn't get through." Shuyu has never been like this, Butterfly Monster thought for a while and said, "Is it possible that Uncle Rat Monster is working so he can't answer the phone?" Shuyu's wife, Shu Xiao Shu, said, "I called the cleaning company where he works and his colleague said he didn't come to work today. I know that he came to the hospital yesterday. I had no choice but to trouble you." "Well, Uncle Shuyu did come yesterday, but he left soon. He didn't even take your medicine." Luo Dance tilted her head and said confusedly, "But where did he go? It might be that place." Shu Xiaoshu said with some fear. "Where?" "Pure Land of Bliss." Shu Xiaoshu didn't speak, but her cheese stretched his neck and said, "Mom said that children shouldn't go there because it's very dangerous. But sometimes my father goes there secretly. Dad would even lie to Mom and say that he was working overtime. But in fact, we all know." Luo Dance looked at Shu Xiaoshu, who said with a serious face, "In fact, I asked Cheese to find his father's scent in the morning. After finding the place, the scent disappeared. That place can only be solved by Lord Long." The little butterfly widened her eyes and asked in confusion, "Auntie, where is the Elysium world? Why do you seem to be afraid?" As soon as the little butterfly asked the question, a cold voice came from behind her. Of course a weak monster like her would be scared. Luo Dance turned back and found Su Zijuan had appeared behind her. She asked subconsciously, "Sister Zijuan, do you know anything?" Su Zijuan said indifferently, "The boss of the Elysium world is a 1,000-year-old big monster. Its body is a golden monkey, but it's just a rumor. Anyway, no one has ever seen its body. As for the monkey, it's the old woman Long Shra who said it." Big monster. The little butterfly blinked her eyes and was stunned for a moment before she realized what was happening. She gently patted her chest and stuck out her tongue. "So there's a great monster here besides Sister Long. I didn't know." Unexpectedly, Su Zijuan pointed at herself expressionlessly. "I'm also a big monster." Luo Dance began to sweat and then bowed to apologize. "I'm sorry, Sister Zijuan. I'm sorry. Su Zijuan snorted coldly in a very low voice. She suddenly looked at Shu Xiaoshu and said indifferently, "Go back. If your husband is missing in the Elysium world, he'll come back. If he doesn't come back, I'm afraid he's probably dead. Don't waste your efforts to find him. Maybe you'll have to start preparing for your funeral." "How can I do that?" Shu Xiaoshu immediately covered her face and sobbed. Luo Dance looked at Shu Xiaoshu, who was still pregnant, and hugged Cheese, who didn't know what to do. She couldn't bear it and gently pulled Su Zijuan's clothes. "Sister Zijuan, can you go to the Elysium bar and ask?" "I won't go there." Su Zijuan yawned. Little Butterfly's thought was relatively simple. "Why? Is it because the boss there is more powerful than you?" "Ridiculous. That monkey whose head was clamped by a door can only kneel down and lick my boots." "But why don't you go there?" Little Butterfly asked confusedly. "That's because, humph." Su Zijuan snorted. "No one can order me to do things. Your Excellency, please do me a favor and help me inquire about my husband." At this time, Shu Xiaoshu directly knelt on the ground with her hands on her knees. With her big belly, she even began to bend over and kowtow. "Please, I beg you. What are you doing? Get up, get up." Okay, I'll go there and ask." Su Zijuan turned around and snorted. "Listen, I just want to settle some old scores with that monkey, not because I sympathize with you or help you." Su Zijuan turned around again and said seriously, Remember, no one can. Before she finished her words, Luo Dance had already answered with a smile. No one can order Sister Zijuan to do things. I know. She really couldn't make people angry. Where on earth did that old woman Long Shirua pick up this little butterfly monster? Su Zijuan sighed silently. Old woman, where did you die? Tianzi tried hard to make his body swing, in order to attract the attention of the owner who was reading below. Swaying and swaying, it had already formed a rather large arc under the ceiling. Luochio took the book and suddenly picked up a piece of Miss Maid's handmade cookie to eat. He curiously asked while eating, Tianzi, what do you want to say? Tianzi found that the black cloth wrapped around his face suddenly disappeared. He hurriedly said, Master, after I learned from the painful experience, suddenly interrupted. Luochio interrupted. Is this the same excuse as last time? Luochio asked with a smile. If you don't have anything new to say, then you can only wait until Yu Yi is in a good mood before you could be released. It's up to you to release me or not. Tianzi didn't dare to say such words directly. Of course, this old bastard wouldn't simply think that he was hung up because he touched that gramophone. In fact, the boss of this club was very black-hearted. This was clearly an alternative punishment for what happened in prison. Tianzi, don't you know that Master likes honest children? Yu Yi said indifferently at this time. Do you know the consequences of intentional deceit? Tianzi was in a cold sweat. This old bastard seemed to throw caution to the wind today. He took a deep breath and said, Master, can you release me tonight? After tonight, I will continue to be tortured. Miss Yu Yi can hang me for as long as you like. Why tonight? Do you have anything special? Luochio asked curiously. It's a little important. Tianzi stammered. But when he saw the servant girl's narrowed eyes, he shuddered all over. Tonight is the concert of Germanic Chariot. I don't know when I'll be able to attend it if I miss it. It's them. I haven't paid much attention to them recently. Luochio nodded thoughtfully. Tianzi stretched his neck and said expectantly, Master. The boss of the club suddenly closed the book in his hand, stood up, and chuckled. Yi, let's go to the concert tonight. Tianzi was stunned. Chapter 408. Luo Dance glanced at Uncle Rat Monster's photo. The wedding photo Aunt Rat Monster showed her. After looking at it, the little butterfly monster carefully put on her backpack and bent down slightly. Sister Zijuan, how do we get in? Even though the little butterfly monster was the petite type, Miss Su Zijuan, who only had half of the Hitorigami bloodline, was obviously shorter. Su Zijuan looked at the sky. It was already dark. They waited until nightfall when the pet center was closed before taking action. Luo Dance didn't intend to come. Butterfly Monster listened to Long Shua's order not to go to cram school, but she didn't say that she couldn't take the college entrance examination. So she studied hard in the evening after work. In addition, a human guest introduced her to read a book when she came for treatment. It was very good. The book was called XXX Club. But, let's go. I'll show you the world of adult monsters. In this way, they came to this almost abandoned industrial park. Generally, the amount of demon power bead condensed by monster power is not much. 1 month's worth of normal amount is enough for the entrance fee. Su Zijuan walked toward the cargo hold with all the doors and windows closed, saying, the consumption inside is also the same. All of them are paid with demon power beads. 1 month's worth of normal amount is just the entrance fee? Butterfly Monster stuck out her tongue. Since she mastered the skill of mathematics, Butterfly Monster didn't need to count her fingers. She knew what the so-called 1 month's worth of normal amount was. It was a constant that in places like mountains and forests, there was more vitality than in cities. Now in cities, the ratio was generally 1, 2, 3. In some areas, such as heavy industrial areas or heavily polluted places, the ratio was higher. That was to say, if a monster lived in cities, the entrance fee alone would cost 2 or 3 months of accumulation of monster power. The world of adult monsters is so expensive, Su Zijuan said coldly. Of course it's expensive for someone like you to absorb the moonlight normally. Little Butterfly didn't say anything. Although she didn't know much about the human world, she still knew a lot about the basics of the demon world. She knew that there were other ways besides not being pure. This made her subconsciously recall the mantis monster that had once chased after her. Devouring other monsters was a way to rapidly increase one's demonic power. That mantis monster was no longer around. It was now working in Sister Long's hospital. The fear of being eaten by the mantis monster every day seemed to be a thing of the past. But if he hadn't found that place in the beginning and hadn't met that boss, he wouldn't have had this kind of life later on. Little Butterfly suddenly thought of the uncle and auntie in the bun shop. She thought of the boss who gave her honey twice. She almost became absent-minded. "We're here." Su Zijuan stood in front of an iron door. Luo Dance came back to her senses and quickly put her palm to her lips, then took a deep breath. "What are you doing?" Su Zijuan frowned. Luo Dance seemed to have something in her mouth. She blurted out, "The entrance fee." "Sister Zijuan, wait. I'm not very proficient in spitting out demonic power, and it's only for 2 months." "Why are you spitting it out for 2 months?" "In your entrance fee," Luo Dance said naturally. "You're treating me?" "Yes, Sister Zijuan, you brought me here. I'm sorry to ask you to pay for it." Little Butterfly blinked her eyes. "When the aunt of the bun shop took me in, she taught me not to care so much for my good friends." Su Zijuan was slightly stunned. Little Butterfly put the 2 demonic power beads in her palm and looked at them. "Sister Long is very kind to me. Sister Zijuan is also very kind to me. There are not many people in this world who are kind to me. So," she sent one of the beads to Su Zijuan, giggling like a breeze with mist in a mountain stream. "I want to be kind to you too. Which dimension are you a monster from?" Su Zijuan looked at the crystal beads in her small palm and was lost in thought. All of a sudden, Su Zijuan turned around in a panic. She snorted, "What are you talking about? I don't need friends. Besides, Su Zijuan, want to go in. Who dares to ask for my entrance fee? Take back your stupid beads, humph." At this moment, Miss Hanba, who was not tall and slender, gently lifted the hem of her skirt and stretched out her legs. He kicked the iron door with his foot. Asterisk bang. Asterisk the iron door opened with a bang, and the explosive noises from inside could be heard all at once. At the same time, a boy wearing thick smoky makeup and clothes with many nails walked out in an instant. "Who dares to kick the door here? You're courting death." The boy's voice was not loud, even feminine, but there was a kind of horror coming. At least, the little butterfly monster was instinctively afraid after hearing the voice. "I've kicked this door for more than 100 times. Do you have any opinion, Ghost Baby?" Su Zijuan sneered suddenly. The boy in front of her, Ghost Baby, was stunned and instinctively rubbed his eyes. His voice trembled instantly. "Big Sister Zijuan, you welcome back." Ghost Baby quickly bowed at a 90-degree angle. "Big Sister?" The little butterfly tilted her head and began to read the Xinhua dictionary in her head quickly. Big Sister's meaning gradually became clear. "Don't talk nonsense. I'm here for Sun Xiaosheng. Ask that guy to come out." Su Zijuan snorted and released her aura. Ghost Baby quickly wiped his cold sweat and said, "Well, Big Sister, the boss is not here. He went to the concert tonight." "Concert?" Su Zijuan was stunned and frowned. "What's that? It seems to be a chariot or a team." Ghost Baby shook his head and said, "I don't understand." Su Zijuan pondered for a while and shook her head. "Forget it. It's good that the guy is not here. I don't want to be disgusted. Little guy, come in with me. Take whatever you like. Whoever dares to ask you for the fee, you could just pick up the glass bottle and explode his head. No one dares to touch you." "Sister Zijuan, who the hell are you?" How should I put it? Perhaps it was when he was in his adolescence. There was a period of history that even now seemed a little shameful. That was when he was obsessed with a certain battle car band. Boss Luo came to the concert with Mississippi Maid. Of course, Taiyinzi was also behind. In order to attend this concert, Taiyinzi naturally wore an afro costume. If it weren't for the black-hearted master and the more black-hearted servant girl, Taiyinzi would have swayed with the people on the scene. "Wow, Taiyinzi." Boss Luo suddenly sighed at this moment. "This is the concert that you booked in advance and absolutely don't want to miss, right?" "Master, yes." Taiyinzi nodded and then said with a dirty smile, "Master, isn't it great? In terms of sound effects, it's not bad, but..." Luo Chio looked around and finally fixed his eyes on the large cardboard at the entrance, which was the character cardboard of the band members. Boss Luo sighed. I think it was a mistake to trust you. What? Taiyinzi was stunned. He suddenly had a bad feeling. Luochio shook his head and said softly, I was wondering how the band could get approval so easily and come here to hold a concert, and the media didn't report at all. Now I know. What? It's Germanic. Not Germanic. That is to say, it's a fake band. Let's look at the scene again. It was not the kind of stadium that could accommodate at least tens of thousands of people as Boss Luo had imagined, but a night of Taiyinzi moved his lips as if he wanted to say something. But when he looked at the appearance of the band members on the cardboard, he was sad and absent-minded. Why was this? Why was this? It was the first time that he had a favorite band, and he was pardoned by his master. These two joys should have been superimposed into a greater joy, but why was it like this? As a believer in rock music culture, how could he do that kind of free admission? Although the money for the tickets was picked up from humans, it was still bought with real money. Chapter 409. Since we are here, let's go in and have a look. Hearing this, Tianzi could hardly believe his own ears. Although he said he was wronged and looked like a criminal woman who was about to be beheaded on the execution ground in June, in fact, he had already simulated this scene many times in his mind. For example, he was likely to be tied up by Miss Servant Girl in 100 different ways and then whipped. This scene was so beautiful that Taiyinzi immediately turned to other small scenes. For example, his master would forbid him to continue to dress like this in the future and order him to remove the afro as his soul and body. Well, he had never thought that his master would be so easygoing. Master, you really want to go in and see this performance? Taiyinzi said in disbelief. Is there a problem? Luochio said casually. Besides, I have never been to this kind of place before. It's good to see it occasionally. Maybe I will encounter something interesting. The club owner entered with his hands behind his back and seemed to be in a good mood. Miss Servant Girl followed him closely. Taiyinzi thought for a while and then followed him quickly. He had to listen to it, otherwise he would feel sorry for his ticket money. Master, wait for me, wait for me. Taiyinzi then followed him eagerly. Outside the same nightclub, on the side of the street, there were many supper stalls here. Various street snacks emitted a strong smell of spices, which could be smelled from far away. In front of a cart selling fish eggs, some people off work and passers-by gathered here, because the fish eggs in this stall were quite famous, and more importantly, they were cheap. As the owner of this stall, Yu Danxiang, who was known as Yu Danxiang, was impatiently saying, Hey, Brother Shaosheng, Brother Shaosheng, Brother Shaosheng, you have searched all my pots, and you said you didn't find anything. Yu Danxiang couldn't help but look at the guy in front of him. He had thick sideburns on both sides of his face, but surprisingly, he was a handsome guy. He had a haircut, sideburns, and a shirt with wide sleeves. He was about 21 or 22 years old. It wasn't that this guy was very unconventional. It was just that his era seemed to be somewhat out of tune with the current era. It was unknown which era this was popular. Huh, Yu Danxiang, don't think I don't know that you always put the biggest fish eggs at the bottom of the pot. The young man narrowed his eyes and said with a Sichuan accent, As long as there's a bamboo stick, even if it's an iron pot, I'll show you. Yu Danxiang did not take these words as a joke, because he had indeed seen the other party really use a bamboo stick to pierce a perfectly good iron pot. Huh, why didn't you let me find you? Brother Shaosheng showed his results with a smile. There were several large fish balls on a bamboo stick at the moment. The other customers followed suit and began to search for pots enthusiastically. Brother Shaosheng flicked his finger, and a few coins accurately flew into Fishball Chong's money box. He left with a proud and indulgent look on his face. Yu Danxiang could only watch the other customers begin to ravage his stall with a bitter face. He simply ignored it, opened the folding stool, sat up, and lit a cigarette. He glanced at his money box, and then glanced at the strange guy with sideburns, and took a light puff of the cigarette. His name was Yu Danxiang, and he had been selling fish balls here for several years. He only knew that his name was Shaosheng, and he was a strange guy. He spoke a thick Sichuan accent, but he didn't like to put chili sauce in his fish balls. Every time, he could find a few large fish balls that he deliberately hid. He didn't know who he was, and he didn't ask him anything. They were just, one was selling fish balls here, and the other was looking for hidden fish balls here. They only met each other once in a few days, as if they just enjoyed it. They met by chance. No matter tomorrow. After that, Brother Xiaosheng with sideburns gently swayed his body to the rhythm of the huge sound system outside the nightclub. No one stopped him because he was a regular here. The nightclub's underlings at the door saw him, and they would eagerly call Brother Xiaosheng and follow him everywhere. Of course, he was not the boss or shareholder here, but he was a person that the nightclub's boss would be willing to curry favor with. By the way, Brother Xiaosheng also liked to eat street snacks outside. Brother Xiaosheng, you came early today. Huh, it's lively today. Brother Xiaosheng smiled and said, I like to join the fun and watch the fun. Do you know why? Why? The nightclub's underling asked subconsciously. Brother Xiaosheng squinted and said, haven't you heard of the saying, watching the fun doesn't make things worse? Brother Xiaosheng is right. You are right. Yes, 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 that's the attitude. The nightclub's underling said happily, I admire you, Brother Xiaosheng. Come in, please. There are already a lot of people here. Brother Xiaosheng picked a fishball and put it into his mouth. He smiled and said, I see, there are really a lot of old ghosts here. Brother Xiaosheng squinted at the entrance, looking at the back of the person with an afro. Old ghost. The nightclub's underling was stunned. He looked around and wondered, I don't see any old people, Brother Xiaosheng. Brother Xiaosheng pointed at the bamboo stick in his hand and smiled. Can't you see? Isn't there one behind you? Behind? The nightclub's underling turned his head, but he couldn't see anything. But when he turned his head again, Brother Xiaosheng couldn't see it. But he seemed to feel a little cold behind him. The nightclub's underling suddenly shivered and shook his head. He asked other guests to take it. The sound system outside the door was louder in order to make the atmosphere more lively. Rumble, ding, 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 ding. Luo Dance had never seen such a lively scene. Monsters didn't need to deliberately maintain their human appearances here. Some of them were crazily shaking their heads on the dance floor. Some were already drunk and lying in the corner. Of course, there was also a shocking scene for Butterfly. Little Butterfly spread her fingers and covered her eyes. She saw that in a dark corner, a dog-type monster who had revealed his true form and a feline-type monster who had revealed his true form were. Butterfly's face turned red. She quickly lowered her head, pursed her mouth, and bit the straw, drinking a very sweet drink. The world of adult monsters was so scary. Luo Dance felt that her face was hot and her heart was beating fast. Suddenly, Luo Dance felt that her eyes seemed to see a lot of spirals. She didn't know why the surrounding scene slowly turned upside down. But even so, Butterfly was very safe, because the guy named Ghost Baby was sitting not far away and staring at her. While playing with a small knife, the Ghost Baby would occasionally flash a terrifying smile on his face. He easily scared away the monsters who had been emboldened by the alcohol that approached him. Ghost Baby looked up on the second floor of the renovated warehouse. Inside the huge floor-to-ceiling glass, Su Zijuan was talking with another guy. That was the manager of the Elysium Bar. Since the boss, Sun Xiaosheng, was absent, the manager was in charge. Humph, this old tortoise. Ghost Baby lowered his head and muttered. Of course, old tortoise wasn't a derogatory term, because the boss of the Elysium Bar was indeed a tortoise. His name was Chichikamaya. Your Highness, what can I do for you? Chichikamaya said slowly. Su Zijuan glanced at the old tortoise. She knew that she couldn't change the old tortoise's way of calling her, so she came straight to the point. Have you seen a monster named Shuyu? 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 Chichikamaya frowned and asked tentatively, Princess, is this Shuyu a big shot in the Rat Clan? I don't seem to have any impression of him. He's just a small monster. Su Zijuan sneered. Is there a big monster in the Rat Clan? Well, no. Chichikamaya nodded and continued to ask, Princess, why are you looking for Shuyu? What's the relationship between Shuyu and the princess? Just tell me whether you've seen him or not. No need to ask more. Su Zijuan said indifferently. This Shu Yu is missing, and the last place he came is here. In addition, his smell started to disappear from here. This, Chichi Kamaya said awkwardly. Princess, you know, as long as the monsters here don't make trouble, we won't care. You said that Shu Yu's smell started to disappear from here. There are only a few possibilities. Chichi Kamaya suddenly opened his eyes and saw Su Zijuan's impatient expression. He changed the topic, but don't worry, since you've said so, I'll give you an explanation no matter whether the Shu Yu is dead or alive. Su Zijuan walked to the French window and glanced at Luo Dance, who was lying on the bar. She said indifferently, I'll stay here until 3 o'clock. Give me an answer before that. This, Princess, there are many monsters in the bar every day, and some pass by to have fun. Isn't 3 o'clock too short? Then before 3 o'clock. You're the princess, as long as you're happy. Chichi Kamaya wiped the cold sweat on his forehead and said bitterly, Then before 3 o'clock. By the way, Princess, I still have a question. Princess, when will you be willing to go back? Su Zijuan suddenly opened her mouth slightly, revealing 4 sharp teeth. She said coldly, I'm a drought demon now. I have nothing to do with the past. Chichi Kamaya sighed. Princess, even if you reincarnate as a drought demon, you can't hide your true spirit. Enough. Su Zijuan's eyes turned red instantly. Chapter 410. After entering, one would find that so many customers actually didn't come for this so-called band. They had invited the famous band Germanic Chariot from who knows where, but it was just a gimmick because this was essentially a nightclub, a place to look for sensory stimulation and self-indulgence. But it was undeniable that this nightclub could be considered as luxurious. In the lobby of the nightclub, including the staff and the ladies of the nightclub, there were roughly 400 to 500 people, maybe more. Of course, in contrast, most of the private rooms were empty because people came out one by one to join in the fun. At this time, an extremely beautiful woman suddenly took 2 glasses of gin fizz from the bartender's tray. The bartender smiled slightly, feeling that this was the customer he was going to send the wine to. But as he watched the back of this beautiful woman gradually disappear into the crowd, the impression in his mind gradually faded away. In the end, he stared blankly at the tray in his hand and muttered strangely, Hey, did I forget to take out 2 cups? Gin fizz. This was the only thing that Miss Maid found in this place that could be considered to be within her master's taste. Of course, she preferred to make it herself. But her master said, Since you're here, do as the Romans do. Seeing Yu Yi walking out of the crowd, the club boss sitting in front of the bar counter in the corner smiled faintly. He took the glass of gin fizz from Yu Ye's hand and gently clinked the glass with hers. To the most beautiful girl tonight. How about a toast? Yu Yi raised her glass and responded softly, Cheers. No one would disturb the time between the boss and Miss Maid, because for everyone, they didn't exist. Yu Yi smiled slightly. Her light lips slightly opened, and the colorless gin fizz flowed into her mouth. As an alchemy puppet, she didn't need to eat, nor did she have the ability to eat, but it didn't mean that she couldn't eat. If it was solid food, she would directly incinerate it with the black flames in her mouth. Looking from the outside, if coupled with the movement of her throat, it would be no different from a real person eating. As for simply drinking something, the liquid that entered the servant girl's body could also be incinerated by the black flame before it went deeper into the body through the simulated throat. Of course, if it was only liquid, it could also enter the body naturally without incinerating it. There were many tubes in Miss Maid's body. They could allow the liquid that entered the body to flow, allowing it to evaporate naturally through the surface of the body like a real person. As for the final residue, the final result was also incineration. This was a very superfluous action, so even if she had this ability, she almost never used it. But that didn't mean that it would never be used. For example, Miss Maid didn't choose to incinerate the cups at this moment. Instead, she chose the most complicated way. Master, do you find it too noisy? It's all right. Luochio sat on the high stool, leaning against the bar cabinet. He looked around and suddenly joked. Don't you think this kind of place is more suitable for my current identity? Luaccio put down the gin fizz in his hand and then gently pressed his hands on Miss May's shoulders, turning her around. "Look," he whispered in Yuye's ear, and at the same time his palms slowly slid down her shoulders to her arms and small arms. Finally, he gently grasped her palms, gently lifted them, and pointed to the front. "Do you see it? It's all gray, but there's a little bit of white inside." Miss Maid's royal blue eyes began to sparkle, and her body seemed to soften a little. She gently leaned on her master and whispered, "That girl, the girl who is drinking with us." Luaccio smiled. "Is she beautiful?" Yuyi nodded, like a white lotus about to wither in the mud. Luaccio moved Miss Maid's finger and pointed to another direction. In the dim ring-shaped booth in the corner, several middle-aged men and a young man were hugging different women, laughing and talking about something. Luaccio asked, "Where is the young man?" Miss Maid thought for a moment. "He may be with his boss or a guest." Yi paused. "Well, he doesn't like this place." There's disgust in his eyes, but he has to hide it carefully because he knows that he needs to cater to them. Miss Maid turned her face slightly, almost touching Luaccio's face. She stared at him and said, "Because he knows that if he doesn't cater to them, he may not be able to protect something, maybe his family." Luaccio suddenly smiled and put down Yuye's hand. Miss Maid immediately turned around and faced her master with her back. For her, this was an unforgivable behavior. Luaccio touched the wine glass and said softly, "Look at me. Don't you think I'm showing off in front of an expert? I haven't grasped this ability for a long time, so everything feels new to me. But you're different. You must have seen and encountered more than me. Just now you must be bored." "Master," Miss Maid suddenly called. She put her palm on the back of Luaccio's hand and smiled. "Yuyi, you don't know me. If you don't know me, you can't show off. You're always good." Luaccio suddenly turned over his hand and held Miss Maid's hand. He played with these slender and soft fingers that were no different from real people. They were like the most perfect handicrafts. "Where is Taiyinzi? Why don't I see him?" Luaccio suddenly sighed and let go of Yuye's hand. He looked around and asked casually, "Oh, him." The servant girl smiled and said, "He is probably trying to find a way to make up for this mistake." Luaccio smiled and said softly with the wine glass, "Cheers." If he was not in the mood, even if he ate dragon meat, it would be tasteless. Of course, this was just an exaggeration. There was still a taste, but it was not delicious. Taiyinzi was holding a bottle of Chivas that he took from a guest seat. He didn't taste anything. Since this was not the place for him to contribute his faith, and the counterfeit band was not the object of his faith, then he should make up for this mistake. The newcomer of the club who felt that he had no bright future was making a small calculation. If he could find a rich man here, maybe he wouldn't be hung up when he went back. Later, Taiyinzi learned from Miss Yuyi that the current boss had just taken office. In fact, he was wearing the halo of the first Black Soul envoy transformed by the new boss. F***CK. He was clearly wearing the halo of a fake bishop. No matter how many Black Soul bosses were hidden in the club, he was the Black Soul envoy who had accompanied his master for the longest time. Before knowing the truth, Taiyinzi didn't dare to guess the boss's taste. But after knowing the truth, combined with what he had seen and heard during this period of time, Taiyinzi seemed to understand Boss Luo's taste. It was a very tricky taste. Unless it was a guest who came in with a black card and had to be served due to the rules, the current boss was obviously a very picky guy. The guy who was eroded by material desires outside. As long as he used some small tricks, wouldn't he become a rich man in minutes? While wandering in the backstage of the nightclub, Taiyinzi muttered, "But according to the boss's nature, he naturally wouldn't be interested. Well, I have to think about it carefully. Of course, I don't want to be the most popular person, but at least in these hundreds of years of service, I have to live a peaceful life." But there were so many people outside, and the boss didn't even want to be interested. The backstage people were 10 or 20 times less. Could he meet them? Taiyinzi couldn't help but deeply doubt. He stuck his head through a shining door to peep at the situation inside the door. Well, these two guys are having an affair, only knowing how to indulge in lust. The woman is fat bad. He stuck his head through the second door. A group of employees hiding here to laze around. and their level is not high bad. He stuck his head through the third door. Toilet? Damn, a woman peeing while standing? Bad, 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 bad. TNZ sighed. Is there no ideal rich man? Suddenly, some noises attracted him. It seemed that two men were quarreling. TNZ continued to stick his head in, only to see two men inside. One man just happened to punch the other man's face, and the latter was beaten to the ground. Chapter 411. After Hongguan was beaten to the ground, he didn't get up immediately. He didn't intend to fight back against Chung Yiran, who had just punched him in the face and even hit him to the ground. Hongguan just sat on the ground, lowered his head, and stretched out his hand to wipe his painful cheek. Because of the heavy blow, his mouth was overflowing with blood. Hongguan glanced at the bloodstains on his fingers. At this time, Chung Yiran suddenly stretched out his hand, as if he was going to pull him up. Hongguan waved his hand away, and the two just stared at each other. After a while, Hongguan got up by himself, tidied up his clothes, and said indifferently, I'm going to find someone to touch up my makeup. I won't be lazy for tonight's performance. But no matter what, this will be my last performance. Looking at Chung Yiran's complicated expression, Hongguan sighed, patted him on the shoulder before leaving, and said, Go wash your face and wake up, whether it's your anger or something else. Before Hongguan opened the door and left, Chung Yiran suddenly clenched his fist. Hongguan, have you forgotten what we said before? The two had their backs to each other. Hongguan raised his head, took a deep breath, and said indifferently, My wife is about to give birth. Hospitalization, delivery room, all these cost money. After the child is born. Hongguan shook his head, I'm not alone anymore, and I can do whatever I want. Like now, I can't let my wife and child live a life without a meal. Iran, don't you understand? It's not that no one understands our music, but we don't have this talent at all. Besides, he finally turned his head slightly, looking at Chung Yiran's back. Besides, like now, with the name of a fake band and begging others to perform on stage like a grandson, don't you feel uncomfortable? He didn't know when the door had closed. Chung Yiran covered his forehead and squatted on the ground. The sound of the nightclub outside was very loud, and even if it reached here, the floor was still slightly vibrated. Chung Yiran covered his face with both hands and squatted on the ground. He didn't know when the band members became fewer and fewer one by one. Finally, only he and Hongguan were left. Even the name of today's so-called concert was no longer the same as before. Chung Yiran couldn't remember what the first member said to him. Even what Hongguan said just now, he hoped to forget it as soon as possible. The few of us got to know each other when we were drifting in Beijing. When he was young, he was hot-blooded and fearless, traveling far and wide. I'm the only one left. Chung Yiran suddenly stood up, grabbing an electric guitar, leaning against the corner of the wall, and smashing it on the floor. Smash it into pieces. I'm the only one. I'm the only one left. I'm the only one left. I'm the only one left. Let's go. Let's all go. Let's all go. Let's all go. Chung Yiran finally stopped. He covered his eyes with the guitar head in his hand. He was alone. Alone. After Hongguan left, Tai Yinzi, who was just a bystander, still stayed here. After drinking 2 mouthfuls of shivas, Tai Yinzi turned around and walked back the way he came. On his palm, a white card was faintly discernible. It seemed to be constantly switching between condensing and dissipating. However, this super newcomer of the club had a gloomy face. It was unknown what he was thinking. It was not until Taeyenzi followed his master's aura and arrived before Boss Luo that the white card in his hand finally took shape. And Taeyenzi's face also changed into a happy eunuch's face. Boss Luo, who seemed to be talking with Miss Maid, glanced at Taeyenzi and asked curiously, Taeyenzi, did you get anything from your trip? Master, please take a look. Taeyenzi presented the white card in his hand with both hands. However, when Luochio's palm was about to touch the card, Taeyenzi's eyes suddenly lowered a little. Boss Luo's hand stopped. Taeyenzi, you don't want me to see the information of this customer, right? No. Taeyenzi suddenly raised his head and said seriously, Why would I? I'm just afraid. Oh, Luochio asked curiously, What are you afraid of? Tianzi said. Haven't I been messing things up all the time? I don't know if this is suitable. How about master? Let me study it again. Unexpectedly, Miss Maid said indifferently. Tianzi, have you forgotten the rules of the club? The formed white card must be handed over to the master no matter what. If you don't hand it over, your body and soul will be destroyed. Then, Tianzi's face changed slightly, and finally he gritted his teeth and said, Master, please take a look. When Luocio took the white card in his hand, he suddenly made a slight sound of him and slightly tilted his head. Tianzi was stunned, but his first reaction was not that the boss was unhappy, but that he noticed something. This reaction was too familiar to Tianzi. This was clearly the reaction he would have when he stumbled upon an uninvited guest 500 years ago when he was roaming the Jianghu. At this time, Miss Maid lowered her head and whispered in Luocio's ear, Master, I'll go and have a look. With this, Yi walked into the crowd of the nightclub ballroom. Master, it seems that someone was spying on you. Tianzi frowned and said. Boss Luo, who was playing with the white card in his hand, smiled. Why should I be spied on? I feel that someone is spying on you more. Tianzi pointed at himself in astonishment. Poor Taoist. With this, Tianzi frowned and turned around, seriously looking at the crowd in the ballroom, and said seriously, Indeed, I didn't expect this place to be so foul. Just now, Tianzi didn't pay much attention because he was thinking about the performance. Now that he was paying attention, he easily detected several different kinds of demon auras and some wandering ghosts. Tianzi suddenly opened his eyes wide and put his hand in front of Boss Luo to protect him, saying seriously, Master, please rest assured, even if I have to be smashed to pieces, this poor Taoist will protect your safety. Let's drink. Luocio shook his head, as if he couldn't help laughing, but he grabbed an unopened bottle of Chivas from the bar and moved it in front of Tianzi. The customer you found is about to come on stage. Master, you've already approved it? Tianzi was stunned. Luocio shook his head and didn't say anything. He just held the glass of gin fizz in his hand and touched the bottle of Chivas, smiling, cheers. At the same time, a fashionable man on the stage held a microphone and shouted loudly, dear guests, let's make the atmosphere more lively. Okay? Is that okay? Do you want to listen to something more wild? A more heroic sound? Okay, no time to lose. Let's invite our famous band, Germanic Chariot. That was a voice that could be heard through the wall in the alley behind the nightclub's back door. The voice could be faintly heard. Miss Servant Girl slightly tilted her head. After hearing this, she turned her head and looked at the back in front of her. Looking at the back, Miss Servant Girl had a feeling of déjà vu for a moment. How should she describe it? A weird hairstyle, a plaid shirt with big sleeves, and bell-bottoms with narrow legs. Miss Servant Girl felt that she saw the club's new Black Soul envoy. At this time, the strange man in front of him suddenly stopped. I only took one more look at you in the crowd, and you chased me all the way here. Is it because I'm too charming? With a thick Sichuan accent, the weird man turned around and laughed. Although you're very beautiful, you're the second most beautiful person in the world. So, don't fall in love with me, Miss Servant Girl had no expression, but her blue eyes lit up. Can I ask you a question? Well, I'll answer you if I want to, but... He shook his head. If I don't like it, I won't say it. Why are you looking at us secretly? My eyes are my body. Do I need you to control what I see? The strange man smacked his lips and blinked his eyes a few times. A golden light flashed in his pupils. Not a ghost, not a human, not a demon. What are you? Interesting. Me? Miss Servant Girl smiled and whispered, Of course, I belong to my master, and the strange man was suddenly stunned. The beautiful woman in front of him seemed to have suddenly disappeared. The next moment, she appeared in front of him, extremely close to him, and the voice seemed to be ringing in his ears. And except for my master, I really don't like to be called thing by others. The weird man, Brother Shaosheng, suddenly felt that the countless fine hairs on his body seemed to have been electrocuted. They stood up one by one, and he suddenly took a step back. His heart seemed to have been struck by lightning, and his scalp was numb. Interesting, interesting. Unexpectedly, the beautiful woman in front of him just said indifferently, "My master doesn't like to fight for nothing. Since you're just curious, then it's nothing. But next time, please pay attention to your tone of speaking." Miss Servant Girl turned and left. Brother Xiaosheng was stunned and subconsciously wiped his forehead. His palm was wet. He suddenly felt a chill on his back and reached out to touch it. His face was full of fear. His back, from his shirt to his pants, had completely disappeared, as if it had been incinerated by something. "Oh my God, who is this woman?" Brother Xiaosheng kept blinking. "She's even fiercer than Long Shiro." Chapter 412. When Yi returned, she saw Tianzi staring at the surroundings attentively. If he was given a knife, what would he look like? Of course, it was just like a cameo who had no name but worked hard to portray the posture of a fourth-ranked imperial bodyguard with a sword. "Master, you're back." Luochio nodded. "You didn't encounter any trouble, right?" Miss Maid approached him and whispered, "It's a monster with decent strength. It should be just curious and nothing else. I've already warned it." "Master, is it okay to deal with it this way?" "Just do as you say." Luochio smiled and suddenly waved his hand to pinch Yu Ye's clothes on her shoulder. "This is—" Yu Yi frowned. She always liked to be clean and not be stained with dust. "It looks like a strand of hair." Luochio waved his hand and gently swept Miss Maid's shoulder. "It should be left by the monster just now." "Master," Yi was too careless this time. For some reason, Miss Maid showed a look of self-blame for the first time. "As you said, it's a monster with decent strength. It's normal for it to have some little tricks that people don't notice." Luochio smiled and stretched out his hand to wipe Yu Ye's frown. "The systems of the East and the West are different. The source of our power is even more different from other systems. It's not strange that we can't notice it once or twice." With that, Luochio looked at the short strand of hair in his hand. The golden hair was about half the length of a finger. Boss Luo suddenly opened his palm and let the strand of hair lie flat in his palm. Suddenly, it automatically broke into countless small pieces that were as fine as dust, and it completely disappeared with a puff of air. Just like a lion won't pay attention to ants crawling on the ground, Luochio said indifferently, then suddenly smiled and looked at Yu Yi. "You don't need to blame yourself. But it's okay to be upset because it will make you look cute. And it's also my first time to see it." Yu Yi nodded. But in an instant, she returned to the Miss Maid who could do almost everything in the club. "Let's watch the performance." Luochio looked at the dance floor and the stage. He saw two young men holding their instruments and waving their hands while walking out from the back of the stage. Without saying anything, the explosive music sounded. As a guitarist, Chungaran started her solo at the first time. Her fingers on the strings were like a powerhouse, increasing the sound effect again. Luochio drank the last mouthful of gin fizz and suddenly said, "Tianzi, since you found a financial backer, then go to work. This poor priest knows." Tianzi nodded. "Some people said that this country's rock is dead. Some people said that it was still alive. For Chungaran, it was still alive. For people who liked it, it was still alive. But it was undeniable that no matter how many people said that it was still alive, the number of people who liked it was always decreasing, and the number of people who understood it was also decreasing. This kind of situation, perhaps it really hurt the rock musicians. They couldn't listen, couldn't say, and could only argue, but in the end, they were powerless to deal with the mainstream public. They either had a war of words in some forums, or they killed a bloody path to bring it to various large stages again and again. But in this country with a population of 1 for billion, there were still too few. Who knows if there will be a day when this country will be able to reproduce the popularity of rock and roll all over the country decades ago. After all, there were too few successful people walking on this road. Without a great beauty, they couldn't walk the path of idols and quickly become popular. Without a strong financial backer, they could only fight for the same stage with thousands of people, and without a strong strength, they could only be hot-blooded, could only be in this kind of place. The audience below the stage was indeed very lively, but it wasn't because of the music at this moment, but because of the alcohol and the beauty around him. Chung Yiran's fingers became faster and faster, but he gradually felt pain and numbness in his fingers. When he first learned to play the guitar, he often felt pain and numbness in his fingers, but it was far less painful than this. He tried his best to play, but at best, it was just a tool for the people here to set off the atmosphere. The music sounded again, but no one looked at him. This is not what I want. It was as if there was a voice whispering in his ear. Is this what you want? Was it his own voice? Or was it someone else's voice? Chung Yiran suddenly couldn't hear the lively voices below the stage. It was as if he had suddenly lost his hearing. A buzzing sound kept circling in his mind, lingering and becoming more and more ferocious. It pierced through his pride, his perseverance, and his persistence, leaving nothing behind. Chung Yiran came back to his senses under a loud sound. There were many sound systems below the stage, and at this time, they were constantly repeating the ear-piercing buzzing sound. Chung Yiran looked below the stage in surprise and fear. Those so-called audience who didn't look at him were now looking at him one by one. Chung Yiran looked at his hands subconsciously, looking at the electric guitar hanging on his hand, looking at the string that was broken by his madness and numbness. A broken string. He played a broken string. Chung Yiran slightly moved his lips, as if he wanted to say something, but at this moment he suddenly felt a kind of fear and panic. He didn't know what to do. His body almost instinctively retreated step by step. Seeing the situation, Hongguan, who was next to him, quickly turned on the electric cords hanging on his body and began to save the situation. "This is not what I want," he said softly. "This is not what I want," he said in a low voice. "This is not what I want," he suddenly roared. Bang! He suddenly untied the electric guitar hanging on his body, heavily throwing it on the stage, then turned around and rushed out of the stage, leaving only the astonishment and confusion, as well as Hongguan's sigh. Chung Yiran kept pouring water on his face with both hands in a bathroom of this nightclub. He had already wet his face and his hair completely. He just did this kind of thing subconsciously, perhaps because Hongguan once said to calm him down. Let him calm down, be it anger or something else. Chung Yiran raised his head, looking at himself in the mirror. His hair was stuck together by the water, randomly hitting his face. There was no doubt that even he himself could feel that the face in the mirror was a complete loser. Leaning against the wall, he let his body naturally slide down to sit down, letting his hands naturally hang down, touching the cold floor with his head lowered. Chung Yiran just let himself sit like this, his mind blank. All of a sudden, he reached for his neck and pulled off a necklace that was hanging inside. It was a metal brand necklace. He threw it away. Chung Yiran suddenly laughed. Perhaps he was laughing at himself. He stood up and left the bathroom in a daze, letting the water drip on his face and hair on the ground, all the way up the stairs, and finally came to the roof of this building. Chung Yiran went to the place where he felt he could end. Standing at the edge, looking down at the street below, Chung Yiran opened his hands, closed his eyes, and relaxed his body. It's a pity to die like this. This voice was unusually clear, making Chung Yiran subconsciously open his eyes. But the voice was still echoing. Since you don't want this life, why not exchange it for something else? Who's here? Chung Yiran didn't see any figure, only this strange voice. If I say, I can exchange your soul for your success, are you willing? Who's here? You're here. There's only yourself here, and yourself who can make your wish come true. The voice became deeper. Come on. As long as you're willing, you can make your wish come true. You may even use your music to conquer this world. Come on. Come on. Follow me. As if attracted by something, Chung Yiran's footsteps began to move away from the edge of this area. He still couldn't see any figure other than himself. But he seemed to know where to go. Step by step, he walked down the stairs and then came to the door of a private room in this nightclub. Chung Yiran pushed open the door. It was dark inside. There was no light turned on. He could only see what seemed to be two figures. Chapter 4:13. It was too dark. Chung Yiran couldn't see clearly what the two people in the box looked like. Was it someone he knew or someone he didn't know? However, the strange feeling that had driven him to come here eventually drove him to walk in and sit down. Across the huge glass table in the box, he stared at the person sitting on the sofa. He only knew that the other person was a man, but he couldn't see clearly what the other person looked like or how old he was. "You are." Chung Iran frowned. A businessman who can sell you anything." Luocio looked at Chung Iran. The darkness in the box was an obstacle for Chung Iran, but for the boss of the club, there was no difference whether there was light or not. "A businessman?" Chung Iran lowered his head, seemingly thinking about something. "Look," Luocio suddenly said in a low voice. This successfully attracted Chung Iran's attention. He immediately raised his head. Raising his head, Chung Iran's face suddenly became a little bit frightened, because he could see something clearly. Although it was dark here, it was not to the extent that he couldn't see clearly what was happening on the table he was leaning on. The mysterious man in front of him just stretched out his hand and wiped the glass table. Some scattered things directly appeared in front of Chung Iran. He recognized these scattered things. They were the electric guitar that he smashed with his own hands after the quarrel with Hongguan. Chung Iran subconsciously reached out and picked up one of the pieces. There was a word engraved on it. "See, is this yours?" "It's mine." Chung Iran nodded, but then frowned. "Is there any mechanism here? Are there any tricks on the table, or—" "Forget it. I don't have time to watch you do this strange magic show. Besides, I don't know you at all." "This?" Luocio suddenly snapped his fingers. "Is this also a magic show?" The piece in Chung Iran's hand suddenly flew out, together with all the pieces and parts on the table. At this moment, they all floated up one by one. They began to slowly reassemble in front of Chung Iran. Even the broken strings were reconnected. A complete electric guitar finally fell in Chung Iran's hands. It was too amazing. He couldn't think of any magic show that could do this. Chung Iran rubbed his eyes hard, even subconsciously reached out to pluck the strings. This feeling, this is my guitar. Chung Iran suddenly raised his head, saying in disbelief, "How did you do it? What do you want?" Luocio didn't answer him. "And are you willing to pay something?" Chung Iran opened his mouth, both hands holding the resurrected guitar. It seems you haven't decided yet." Luocio smiled and said, "But it doesn't matter. As long as you are willing, our door is always open for you." After saying that, Luocio stood up, seemingly wanting to leave. Chung Iran subconsciously called out, Wait a minute. Is there anything else?" This guitar." Chung Iran hesitated for a moment. "This guitar. Just consider it a souvenir," Luocio said indifferently. "It is a small gift for you. Next time, don't smash such a valuable thing." Chung Iran held the guitar more tightly in his hand. When he saw this mysterious businessman and the other figure about to leave the box, Chung Iran gritted his teeth and suddenly called out, Can I buy something?" Chung Iran had a very deep understanding of this principle. For an ordinary musician like him who didn't have much talent, no glamorous appearance, and no economic foundation, even if it was just one opportunity, he must seize it. But he had never encountered such an opportunity. At this moment, an opportunity that subverted his understanding. This might be an opportunity, even if the other party was a devil. Chung Iran gritted his teeth and said heavily, "I want to buy it." I'm sorry. Hongguan kept apologizing to the manager of the nightclub, bowing and apologizing. His hot-bloodedness and backbone had long been worn down by the thorny music road. For the sake of his life and family, even if the manager scolded him badly, he told himself that he must endure. At least, he couldn't lose the money for tonight's performance. The manager of the nightclub snorted. "What the hell? My table was fine, but your partner threw it away just because he said he wanted to? What a character. If so, don't come to my place to sing. It was the one who begged me to give you a chance to stay here. You almost messed up tonight's event." I'm really sorry," Hongguan hurriedly said. "Please don't be angry. I'll definitely talk to him later. He's in a bad mood tonight, and he drank a little too much, so he's in a bad mood. I think he couldn't hold it back. Besides, manager, although he was like this, he was fine later, right? I'm alone, but the guests below the stage are also quite happy." The manager waved his hand impatiently. Okay, okay. No need to say more. Isn't it just a salary? Don't worry, I'm a kind person. I won't give you less than your share, but your singer friend, I'm sorry. Not a single cent. Tell him to get lost. I don't want to see him anymore. Bah, who do you think you are, pretending in front of me? Manager, can we talk about it again? If you don't give me a single cent, that's two. Let's talk about it again. The manager fiercely glared at him. The imposing manner of this nightclub for more than 10 years was enough to scare Hongguan. Besides, even you don't have a single cent. Hongguan suddenly lowered his head sadly. This was the reality. After the manager finished scolding him, he turned around and walked away. Before going out, he kicked a handful of electric shellfish on the ground and sneered. Musician? Bah! Hongguan clenched his fists and gritted his teeth, but he didn't go forward. After the manager left, he silently picked up his electric shellfish. Since he decided to give it up, it didn't matter whether he picked it up or not. He said to himself. Hongguan sighed and subconsciously took out his phone. The first save number on the homepage of his phone was still Chung Iran. Hongguan's finger on the screen several times wanted to open it, but in the end, he didn't press it. In the end, he just chose to send a short message, briefly explaining the matter, and finally wrote, "You should also calm down. I'll go back first. My wife is still in the hospital. If you have something to do, come to me. Then, it's a pity that I didn't cooperate with you for the last time." But before sending it, Hongguan was silent for a while and deleted the last sentence one by one, changing it to, "Let's part without any hard feelings." Hongguan silently packed up his things, walked out of the nightclub, and sighed heavily. He suddenly smiled, but he didn't know what he was smiling about. He didn't choose to take a taxi. In order to save some money, Hongguan planned to take the last bus. "Hey, I'm off work, yes. I'll come to the hospital right away. It's not hard, not hard. Well, okay. I didn't eat. Oh, I forgot to eat. It's okay, I'll just buy something to eat." Hongguan talked with his wife on the phone. When they passed by a stall selling fish eggs, they subconsciously stopped. "Boss, is there anything else to eat?" Yu Danxiang, who was sitting on a folding stool and reading the newspaper, raised his head with a cigarette in his mouth and said casually, "There's nothing to eat. It's not enough for one serving. If you want to eat, you can pick them all up. I'll give you a share, 5 yuan. Okay. Hongguan nodded. Yu Danxiang stood up, holding the tools, and began to skillfully put the remaining fish, tofu, fish eggs, and so on into a bowl. He suddenly glanced at Hongguan and said casually, "Bro, are you in the music business?" Hongguan gave a start and subconsciously looked at the tools on his back. He was afraid that he would never use them again, shook his head, and said, "Not anymore." Yu Danxiang glanced again. "Why? Isn't it good to be in the music business?" Hongguan smiled. "I can't do it anymore." "Really?" Yu Danxiang nodded and sprinkled the sauce on the packed food bowl. "Well, thanks for the 5 yuan." Hongguan paid the money, took the things, and left. After a few steps, he suddenly heard the fish egg stall owner's voice. "I've been sitting here listening to it all night. It's very nice." Hongguan suddenly stopped as he turned around and stared at the boss of this fish egg stall. He suddenly smiled and walked toward the owner. "What? Didn't you take the chopsticks?" Hongguan shook his head, but took off the electric shell and put it on the stall. "Boss, this thing, I'll give it to you." "Give it to me? I won't be polite, and I won't give it back to you. Are you really willing to give it to me?" Yu Danxiang glanced at it casually, still smoking. Hongguan just gently patted the owner's shoulder and didn't say anything. He just lifted the box in his hand, put it in front of him, and sniffed, softly said, "This smells good. It must taste good." Yu Danxiang shrugged, sat down, put his left leg on his right knee, and read the newspaper again. For the owner of the fish egg stall, this was another strange person he had met by chance. After Hongguan left, Yu Danxiang yawned and also cleaned up his stall. But at this moment, a loud sound came from the nightclub in front of him. "Damn, will you die if you stop for a while?" But while listening, Yu Danxiang was a little distracted and the innermost cigarette but fell to the ground, but he didn't notice. He subconsciously walked forward and approached the brightly lit nightclub. Not only him, some people in a nearby nightclub who came here after having fun also began to look at the entrance of the nightclub. It was as if they were attracted by something. They were attracted by that deafening sound that seemed to be able to beat the world in their hearts. At the same time, inside the nightclub, the manager opened his mouth with an inconceivable expression on his face. He looked at the crazy customers in the hall, his hostesses, waiters, and so on. All of them were like drugs, crazily swaying. Crazy, crazy. The manager muttered to himself, but his body couldn't help but sway with the rhythm. Chapter 414. The craziness in the nightclub continued until 2 o'clock in the morning. Even after Chung Aran left the stage, the atmosphere didn't seem to be able to calm down. How should it be said? Probably, it could only be described as wanting more. That was the most primitive, most barbaric, and most exciting performance in a large-scale concert that really made the audience explode with excitement. Chung Aran left the stage, but the audience was still like quenching steel, burning with passion from the bottom of their hearts. Encore! 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 Without the sound system, one could still hear the spontaneous and loud cries of the audience backstage. There were only a few hundred people, but it felt like tens of thousands of people were shouting at the same time. Chung Aran sat here alone. His hands naturally hung down on both sides of the chair. He raised his head, unconsciously looking at the light on the ceiling of the room. And that electric guitar at this time was quietly lying on his legs. A dreamy scene flashed in front of his eyes. The fanaticism of the audience seemed to have turned into a part of the air, absorbed into his body, integrated into his blood, heating up the big red blood, flowing all over his body. He had never had such a sweaty experience. His whole body seemed to be ignited. He had never had such a moment. He felt that he was so close to touching the expectation in his heart. All of this was because of it. Chung Aran lowered his head, his hands carefully holding the electric guitar on his legs. All of this was because of this electric guitar. That mysterious businessman said that it could make people fall in love with it. After it was reborn, it was endowed with a shocking magic. The magic from that mysterious businessman. Chung Aran suddenly wanted to share this inconceivable and joyful feeling with others. He quickly took out his phone from his trouser pocket. However, he saw a message on the screen. Good meeting, good parting. Chung Aran wanted to share his feelings, but in a flash, it was as if he was drenched in cold water. His finger hovered on the first name in the contact list, but he didn't really open it. Good G, good GG, good GG. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Chung Aran frowned and subconsciously hung the guitar on her body again. She walked to the door, but did not open it immediately. Instead, she asked coldly, "Who is it?" "It's me, Manager Dai." Crack. Chung Aran frowned and said, "I'll leave after packing up. Don't worry, I won't break your things." She had only signed an agreement with Manager Dai to sing once. Chung Aran was clear about this man's character. "Hey, what are you talking about? What did I come to chase you away?" Manager Dai pushed open the half-open door and walked in. He smiled and said, "Little Chung, look, the effect tonight is really good. I'm very satisfied. What do you think? Are you willing to sign a long-term contract with us?" "Long-term?" Chung Aran frowned. Manager Dai said, "That's right. Just now, many customers said that it was too cool. Even taking drugs didn't feel so good. Next time, they still want to listen to it." Manager Dai pulled Chung Aran's arm to make the distance between them closer. "Many people said that if they don't listen to you sing, they won't come next time." "Really?" Chung Aran frowned. "Really? How can it not be true?" Manager Dai patted his chest and said, "I never tell lies. Can't you hear what I'm saying? The people in the hall outside haven't left yet. Listen to it. Isn't he still calling out, 'Ank, Ank'?" There was a large group of people still waiting for her to sing. Chung Aran's first reaction was to be secretly happy. But at the same time, she couldn't help but be secretly frightened. The magic of this guitar was so terrifying. She suddenly became distracted. "Little Chung, little Chung, little Chung." Manager Dai gently shook Chung Aran's arm at this time. Chung Aran was absent-minded and said lightly, "Manager Dai, I want to consider the long-term contract you mentioned." Manager Dai had seen this kind of situation many times. It was nothing more than not giving a good face to this person before. Now, this person deliberately gave a bad face to him with the intention of raising his status. Originally, this kind of hothead was very easy to deal with. To be able to open such a nightclub in this area, the boss behind must be a very capable person. Manager Dai had worked here for so many years. Naturally, he didn't need to care about other people's feelings. But now, he didn't want to use the means of coercion and bribery. At least, before they shed all pretense of cordiality, he was more willing to use the policy of conciliation. Damn it, this guy is really amazing. I, who don't understand music, actually like him. It's okay. You should think it over. Manager Dai laughed. But it's better not to think for too long. You also know that our place is the most popular. How many people are fighting to get on the stage here? Although we still lack a long-term contract, but there are many people below. Some of them are relatives, but I've been suppressing them all. I can't ruin this stage to drive away customers. I have to find a suitable one, right? But this can't be suppressed for too long. I'll give you an answer as soon as possible. Chung Iran nodded and pushed Manager Dai out of the door. I'm a bit tired. I'll leave from the back door later. Then remember to give me an answer? That's a promise. Even if the door was closed, Chung Iran could still hear Manager Dai's voice. At this time, he leaned his back against the door of the room and calmed down slightly. When he left from the nightclub's back door, the cold wind of this city, which was close to 3 o'clock in the morning, blew on his face. Chung Iran still had a kind of unreal feeling. Maybe this was just a dream. When he woke up tomorrow, everything would be back to normal. Chung Iran walked to a small food stall, but suddenly stopped. This place is closed. There's nothing to eat. The owner of the small food stall waved his hand. Go to the convenience store in front. It's open 24 hours. No. Chung Iran frowned, walked forward, pointed at the small folding stool, and said in a deep voice, This thing, where did you get it? This. The owner opened his mouth, then shrugged. Someone gave it to me. Just now a young man. Why, you like it? I'll sell it to you for 500. I just took a look. It's still quite new. It should be worth some money. He gave it to you? Chung Iran took another step forward, grabbed the owner's collar with both hands, and almost roared, He gave it to you? Why did he give it to you? How can he give it to you? Damn, are you trying to be unreasonable? The owner of the small food stall abruptly grabbed Chung Iran's arm and twisted, easily twisting her shoulder away. Let me tell you, you Dan Xiang, am not here for nothing. Back when I came out to make a living, you were still wearing your pants. Let me go. Chung Iran instinctively cried out in pain. Yu Danxiang pushed her away, frowning, and said, If it was 10 years ago, I would have cut off your arm. Chung Iran gritted her teeth, not daring to approach. She calmed down and hesitated. The person who gave it to you, did he say anything else? I forgot. Young man, such a small matter is like a dead mother. Yu Danxiang yawned, shook his head, turned around, and continued to tidy up his stall, saying casually, This is mine. You can take 500 if you don't want it, leave. Chung Iran lowered her head, sighed, and didn't say anything. She silently looked at the bag placed there, sighed again, and turned to leave. On the other side where Hongguan had left. Damn, he really left? Yu Danxiang turned around in shock, stretched out his hand, and said, How about 300? Just 300, 200. 150, damn, 120, no less. Damn, this thing is really worthless. Yu Danxiang shook his head and continued to tidy up the file. Is it really only 120? Then sell it to me. Suddenly, Yu Danxiang heard a voice behind him. He turned around and saw a younger man accompanied by a woman. He didn't know when they had come here. Oh, there's a beautiful woman accompanying him. He's probably some rich kid who came out to have fun. Such a calm demeanor. 120 was the price just now. Now it's 300, no, 500. Yu Danxiang raised his eyebrows. Saying a price means a decision. The young man smiled and asked, Do you think this is the right price? Yu Danxiang was stunned and thought to himself, Does this guy feel uncomfortable if he doesn't get ripped off? Right, this guy is planning to show off in front of the beautiful woman beside him, right? TSK, these rich kids. If you don't think it's expensive, you can take it for 1,000. The beautiful woman beside the young man walked over, put down the money, and directly picked up the item, and finally said slowly, "Keep it well." Yu Danxiang suddenly shivered. He saw clearly that the woman's eyes were blue. Chapter 415. Of course, Brother Xiaosheng couldn't stay in a nightclub anymore. He was soaking in a water tank on the roof of a building. Until the water in the big water tank boiled completely, Brother Xiaosheng jumped out. He felt much better after the cold wind blew. But the woman who made him so embarrassed and whose background he didn't know, let's call her a woman for now. Oh, what's her background? Brother Xiaosheng squatted on the roof of the building. If it was a great demon, it was impossible that he had not seen it before. As for malicious ghosts, the Ghost King of Fengdu, who was known as the most powerful one in the Divine Land, was actually just a water ghost rising city god. He was just a weakling who lived up to his name. Should I ask Long Shiruo some other day? It's a bit humid recently. Should I make a fire pot? Thinking of this, Brother Xiaosheng reached out and pulled out a strand of hair from the back of his head. He rubbed the hair and then blew it away. The strand of hair instantly exploded and then transformed into a mist-like, mirror-like thing in front of Brother Xiaosheng's door. Good guys, let me see what you are. Before Brother Xiaosheng could finish his words, his face slightly changed. The mirror in front of him exploded again in an instant. The exploding water mist even covered his face. Brother Xiaosheng reached out and scratched his face. After blinking his eyes a few times, he bared his teeth. Good guy, you found it so quickly. Brother Xiaosheng jumped down from the building. His body jumped nimbly between the gaps of the buildings as if he was in the jungle. He planned to go back to his own place to change his clothes and comb his original hairstyle. Su Zijuan sat straight in front of Chi-Chi Kamaya with her arms in her arms and shook her legs. Chi-Chi Kamaya wanted to ask if she could pay attention to her manners. But after looking into the eyes of this extremely troublesome girl, the manager of the Elysium bar pretended not to see it. Chi-Chi Kamaya sighed. Fortunately, Her Majesty was not here. Otherwise, if he saw her shaking her legs, he would be so angry that he would explode and jump out of his coffin. Suddenly, Su Zijuan opened her eyes. When Chi-Chi Kamaya saw her, he broke out in a cold sweat. Princess W, what's the matter? Time's up. Su Zijuan frowned and said, What's the result you want to give me? Quick, I have a disgusting feeling right now, and I don't want to stay here for even a moment longer. But the person I sent hasn't returned yet. I can't do anything about it. Chi-Chi Kamaya wiped his sweat and said, Princess, can you wait a little longer? Do you want me to find something delicious for you? Would the blood of a young female bobcat do? Besides, isn't there still a quarter of an hour left? There's no hurry. No need. Su Zijuan stopped shaking her legs and suddenly stood up. Inform me if you have any news. I'll leave now, right away. Yes, Princess. Chi-Chi Kamaya put his hands together and bowed to Su Zijuan respectfully. See you off, Princess. I don't need you to see me off. I won't be able to walk out of here, even if the sun rises. Su Zijuan said and opened the door without looking back. At this moment, a middle-aged man wearing a bartender's uniform hurriedly ran over. Manager, I got the thing you asked me to ask. The middle-aged man just looked at Su Zijuan strangely. He didn't know who this girl was, but he knew that Manager Gui was very respectful to her, so she was a new worker. Oh, you got it? Chi-Chi Kamaya nodded with a smile and said slowly, Then, just say it. Su Zijuan interrupted Chi-Chi Kamaya's slow words with a commanding tone. The middle-aged man nodded and didn't dare to hesitate. He quickly said, I asked a lot of monsters. There was indeed a guy who saw Shuyu coming here last night, but he left later. Alone or with someone? Su Zijuan asked in a deep voice. The middle-aged man said, I also asked this. He left alone. However, when it was almost daytime, a drunk longhorn beetle came home and said that he saw Shuyu near his home, but he disappeared after a few calls. Where's his home? Oh, not far. It's just a hill in the suburbs. There's no name. It's just a wild hill. Really? Su Zijuan lowered her voice. Indeed, the middle-aged man nodded. This girl gave off a terrifying aura of oppression. Su Zijuan pondered for a moment and suddenly said, "Where is that longhorn beetle?" "Oh, he's still drinking downstairs." The middle-aged man smiled and said, "This poor guy. I don't know if he's rich recently. He comes here every 2 or 3 days and orders expensive things. Bring him to see me." Su Zijuan nodded, but suddenly frowned and changed her mind. "No, take me to see him. Save time. It's too late." Su Zijuan's face suddenly changed. Before Chichi Kamaya and the middle-aged man could react, she broke the window and jumped down to the bar below. The girl's landing posture was very elegant. However, someone jumped down from the broken window. Although she didn't hit anyone, it was impossible for the guests here not to see it. Everyone, all the monsters, looked at Su Zijuan. Ghost Baby, who was guarding a small butterfly, was startled at this time. He quickly ran forward and asked with a frown, "Big sister, what's the matter? Did the old dirty guy offend you?" Chichi Kamaya doesn't dare to offend him, Su Zijuan said indifferently. She glanced at the scene and said directly, "Which one is the longhorn beetle? Come out, I have something to ask you." Among the crowd of demons, there was a dumbfounded expression on their faces. Only one figure seemed to shrink back slightly at this moment. Su Zijuan had good eyesight. She snorted, "Found you." She didn't do anything. She just disappeared in front of the monsters and then appeared in another place. Was it a movement? "Who is this? She seems quite powerful." A drunk old water buffalo rubbed his confused eyes and asked his drinking friend, "I don't know, but the smell of blood is very strong." The monsters were discussing, and the disc jockey in the bar turned off the music instantly. At this time, Su Zijuan lifted up a guy whose body was completely different from hers with one hand. This guy's feet were off the ground, but he was still running away. He was actually less than 1 meter tall. "Who are you?" I didn't offend you. Let me go." This longhorn beetle monster said in horror. He only felt that the blood in his body seemed to be flowing backward, and his heart rate was rising rapidly. "You don't need to worry about this." Su Zijuan pulled him over and said indifferently, "You just need to tell me where you live and where you saw Shuyu. If you tell me, you can eat and drink here for free for the next month." "Okay, no problem." The longhorn beetle monster was so excited that he didn't care whether he was scared or not. "Wait for me outside, and I'll go out immediately," Su Zijuan quickly whispered in Longhorn Bull's ear. Then, she reached out and pushed Longhorn Bull out of the group of monsters. Longhorn Bull lay in front of the door of the bar. Without looking at the longhorn beetle's movements, Su Zijuan turned around and said, "Let's go, little butterfly. Where's she?" Su Zijuan suddenly frowned, because she didn't see Luo dance in front of the bar counter who was supposed to be there. "Ghost Baby, where's the person I brought?" Ghost Baby looked around blankly. "This. Big sister, I saw her lying here just now. Could it be that he took advantage of the chaos just now to escape by himself? She shouldn't go anywhere. Maybe she's still here." Su Zijuan frowned and sniffed. But there were too many monsters here, so she couldn't find the smell of Luo Dance's blood in an instant. "Big sister, it's too late." Su Zijuan quickly said, "Listen, Ghost Baby. If she is still here, you must take good care of her. If anyone dares to touch her, you will kill them, no matter how powerful they are." "Got it." After saying that, Su Zijuan flashed away and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Ghost Baby knew that this big sister had left. He didn't wonder why Su Zijuan left in such a hurry, because almost at the next moment, the boss of the Elysium bar came back. At this moment, the iron plate above the bar suddenly opened up, and a figure stood at the opening, looking down and opening his hands. "Huh, Zijuan, my love, is it you? My heart is beating fast from afar, and I can't help it. Hey, where is she?" "Boss, your pants fell off." The wind blew at his crotch, making him feel cold. Would he be punished if he went back? Taiyinzi held the bag that the boss just bought with a heavy heart. As a Black Soul messenger who believed in rock, he certainly knew what was in the bag. But Taiyinzi was very sensible and restrained his impulse to fiddle with it. He just lowered his head and followed the boss silently from about 10 meters away. As for why he didn't follow up, the boss was walking with Miss Servant Girl at this moment. On the quiet street of Lingqing City at 3 o'clock p.m. There was no one there. Back and forth are all thoughts. It's not bad to walk like this occasionally. Luaccio looked at the night sky. There was no special meaning, just the basic etiquette of sending a female companion back after attending a concert. The boss said, Yu Yi is his female companion tonight. A female companion was different from a maid, so he naturally had to send her off. Master, here we are. Seeing the door of the club, Yu Yi turned sideways. From his servant girl, this might be the first thing she experienced in her life. Luaccio suddenly smiled and looked forward. I didn't expect that there would be a guest. Yes. Miss Servant Girl smiled and followed the boss's gaze. On the road, a staggering figure was coming towards them. She had a silly smile and a blush on her face. She was holding a bottle of something in her hands and burping while walking on the roadside. A pair of colorful wings spread out behind her. She was Luo Dance, the little butterfly monster who had just ascended. Yu Yi smiled. Seems to be drunk. Chapter 416. Brother Xiaosheng was sitting in the office with a broken glass. It should be said that he was squatting. As for the place where he was squatting, it was the only desk in the office. Brother Xiaosheng pointed at the broken floor-to-ceiling glass window and blinked. Oh? You said she didn't come, and Ghost Baby didn't know. Then Chi-Chi Kamaya. Tell me who broke it. And so many monsters downstairs just had an illusion. Well, in my opinion, they should be under a collective illusion. Chi-Chi Kamaya said slowly with his hands retracted. Brother Xiaosheng slammed the table and jumped down, almost hitting in front of Chi-Chi Kamaya. He widened his eyes and said, Old turtle, you don't believe that I can break your turtle shell? Boss, you have already broken it once when you were drunk at the beginning of this month. Chi-Chi Kamaya said seriously, so I believe it. Brother Xiaosheng suddenly scratched his ears and cheeks and flew into a rage. Finally, he stretched out his hand to tidy up Chi-Chi Kamaya's clothes and said kindly, Master Turtle, Grandpa Turtle, I just broke a little last time. How can you be so calculated with me about such trivial things? Grandpa Tortoise, please take pity on me and tell me directly, is Zijuan really back? Boss, when you asked me to be the manager, we had 3 rules. Gue Chini said calmly. You promised me that you wouldn't ask me about the princess, so I stayed. Boss, are you going to break your promise? Brother Xiaosheng suddenly pulled Chi-Chi Kamaya's mouth. Chi-Chi Kamaya, do you really not understand, or are you pretending to be confused? Why did I promise you? Isn't it because I know that your princess will come back to find you? So I kept you? Chi-Chi Kamaya sighed and said, Boss, you are a good person. Although you don't mean what you say, you still took us in. No matter what, I respect you. But I am loyal to the princess. Pedantic. Brother Xiaosheng suddenly let go of Chi-Chi Kamaya and shook his head. Forget it. If you don't tell me, can I find it myself? Since he's back, I don't believe that I can't find him. Thank you for your understanding, boss. Chi-Chi Kamaya slowly bowed and said, Boss, are you really not going to change your clothes? Brother Xiaosheng. Son Xiaosheng was stunned for a moment. He subconsciously touched his bear, but F***CK? I forgot. Luo Dance woke up in such a situation. Her mouth was dry. Her head seemed to be pressed by 2 hands, and she even felt nauseous. When she woke up, she couldn't remember what had happened at all. She just looked around and felt strange. This was not the room in the pet center that she was used to sleeping in. Little Butterfly couldn't describe the style of this place, but it was different from the modern style she was used to. The floors seemed to be made of wood, and the style of the bed. What a big bed. She even had an impulse to roll on the bed. As for whether it was dangerous in a strange place, she didn't seem to think about it at the first time. Maybe it was because of her personality, or her brain was not fully awake, so she couldn't think too much at once. Luo Dance held the white pillow and lay on the bed. She was in a daze for a while, then suddenly sat up. Oh no! Sister Zijuan! Uncle Mouse Monster! Little Butterfly knocked on her head with some annoyance. How could I forget? Muttering, Luo Dance quickly jumped down from the bed. Her smooth feet stepped on the wooden floor. The cold feeling made her a little uncomfortable. Where are my shoes? Luo Dance tilted her head. Not only she couldn't find her shoes, but also the clothes on her body didn't seem to be the ones she wore yesterday. It was a white nightgown. It was a little short, probably just above her knee. Little Butterfly squatted down, bent over, and put her head under the bed to look for it. But at this time, the door of the room opened. "Are you looking for something?" Because she put her head under the bed, strictly speaking, it was a very indecent posture for a normal person. After all, her skirt was lifted up, and she could vaguely see between her legs. But after all, monsters were not human beings, and Little Butterfly, who just mingled in human society, didn't have too many concepts. As for the owner of the voice, Miss Maid naturally didn't intend to avoid anything. Thus, the little butterfly monster woke up from her hangover and met the maid from the club by looking upside down between her legs. "Ah, you are. Little Butterfly was so surprised that she suddenly raised her head. But it was too fast and too inexplicable, so her head heavily knocked on the bed, making a sound. Miss Maid smiled and walked into the room. After putting down the things in her hands, she came over and helped Little Butterfly up, saying softly, "I'm Yu-Yi." "Oh yes, I'm Yu-Yi's sister." Luo Dance rubbed her head and blushed. "Sorry, I didn't remember." "It's all right." Yu-Yi shook her head gently. "I've washed your clothes. Come down after you put them on." Luo Dance glanced at the neatly folded clothes on the plate, her clothes from yesterday, and even her shoes. The shoes looked very new. It seemed like they had been washed inside and out. Why? Luo Dance asked subconsciously. Yu-Yi smiled faintly. "Have you forgotten? Last night, you vomited all over my master's body." Luo Dance suddenly jumped up with a pale face, partly because of the hangover and partly because of the fright. "But you didn't vomit," Miss Maid added at the end. "You scared me." Luo Dance breathed a sigh of relief and patted her small chest. "But," Miss Maid suddenly said. Little Butterfly immediately raised her voice, fearing that she would hear something even worse from this servant girl. But what?" Yu-Yi chuckled. "Next time, don't show your underwear when you wear a nightdress. It's very inelegant for a girl to do so." Luo Dance followed Miss Maid cautiously and walked down the stairs. She didn't know where she was before going down the stairs, but after going down, she found that the place she was at was the club. When she looked past Miss Maid and saw the boss sitting at a small round table, she secretly stuck out her tongue. She didn't make him unhappy, did she? Little Butterfly was faintly worried. At this time, Luaccio was reading the newspaper, drinking half of the black tea in front of him and eating the food on the plate. Boss Luo, who was turning the newspaper, raised his head. "You're awake. Are you hungry? I prepared some food for you. You go and take it out." Little Butterfly had already eaten up a thick Xinhua dictionary, so she naturally knew the meaning of the word elegant. At this time, she felt that Sister Yu-Yi in front of her was really a good example of elegance. She nodded slightly with a perfect smile, which made people feel like bathing in the spring breeze. As she turned around and put her hands on her waist, every step she took, her body swayed very little. Little Butterfly even thought that if a book was put on Sister Yu-Yi's head, it probably wouldn't fall down. Chapter 417. The servant girl who went to get the food hadn't come back yet. Luo Dance had sat down, but she grabbed her trousers with her hands and straightened her back. She didn't dare to look sideways and didn't dare to say a word. At least, she didn't dare to say anything before the boss opened his mouth. "Do I look scary?" Luaccio suddenly asked curiously. "I remember you weren't so nervous when you came here for the first time." "That's because the little butterfly raised her head and then shrank back, saying in a low voice, "Because I didn't know what? Didn't know you were so powerful." Luo Dance's voice became lower. "Am I stupid? If I offended you, please forgive me." As if this was not enough to express her apology, Luo Dance quickly stood up and bowed to apologize. I'm sorry. Last time I asked you to accompany me to see Little Black and Little White, and the time before that. Every time I see you, I don't know why, but my mood will be inexplicably better." Luaccio shook his head and waved his hand to let the little butterfly sit down again. He smiled. "We don't have the rule of asking customers to apologize. Just relax." Is that so?" Luo Dance opened her eyes wide with a puzzled look. Luaccio just smiled and didn't say anything. He turned to a new page of the newspaper and continued to read. "What are you reading?" The little butterfly monster, who didn't feel so nervous, asked with puzzlement. "Something interesting." Luaccio looked at the little butterfly monster and said casually, "Someone took a picture of an unidentified flying object last night." "An unidentified flying object?" Luaccio nodded and said, "There's a report here that a tramp claimed to have met an immortal last night, who pulled him up to the sky and flew to a faraway place." The little butterfly monster blinked. "Immortal? Oh, yes." Luaccio flipped to another page. "It says here, well, the owner of this convenience store said that it was robbed in the middle of the night. However, the thief didn't seem to have stolen any money. He just drank all the milk and honey in the shop and threw the boxes on the ground." Luo Dance suddenly burped and then quickly covered her mouth. "And let's talk about it here." Luaccio glanced at the little butterfly monster, whose ears were starting to redden, smiled, and said, "There are more than a dozen people whose pets inexplicably ran to the street in the middle of the night. When they woke up in the morning, they found that these pets were all in an open space. It looks like— what does it look like? It looks like he's drunk and messily stacked together. I don't know what he went through." After saying this, the club's boss finally couldn't hold it in anymore. He clenched his hand into a fist and gently pressed it against his lips, unable to hide his smile. "And don't say any more." The little butterfly monster's face was extremely red, like boiling water. She subconsciously said, You're so bad." Luaccio took a deep breath and put down his hand. The happy smile on his face gradually faded, and he became quiet once more. Luaccio folded the newspaper and put it down, saying softly, "I'm sorry. I seem to have lost my composure." "No, it's nothing," Luo Dance muttered. As the boss read the information in the newspaper, some intermittent pictures began to flash in her mind. "I don't know what's wrong with me. Is my brain broken?" The little butterfly monster looked at him pitifully and said with fear, "I've never been like this before." Luaccio suddenly waved his hand, and a bottle on the club bar flew into his hand. "I found this on you last night. It's really high in sugar and tastes good. But for you, the concentration of alcohol is probably a bit high. Do you like drinking this kind of thing?" Luo Dance was afraid of being misunderstood. She quickly waved her hand and said, No. I drank it for the first time. I didn't know it would be like this. I won't dare to drink it again." Luaccio knocked on the bottle and said, "It's not like something you can buy in an ordinary convenience store." The little butterfly monster didn't intend to hide it. "Oh, I got it from the Elysium bar. The bartender, Uncle Boar, gave it to me. He said it tasted good and was suitable for girls to drink. I didn't expect it would be like this. Uncle Boar is so bad." "Uncle Boar? Bar?" Luaccio was quite curious. "What's the Elysium bar?" "Master, it's a place for monsters to drink and have fun." He saw Miss Maid holding a plate in both hands and slowly walking towards him. Yi explained while putting the plates and tools in front of the little butterfly monster. "It's in the abandoned industrial park in the west. Monsters living in this city or other places passed by and looked for it. It seems that this bar should be famous in the circle of monsters in the east." Speaking of this, Miss Servant Girl glanced at the little butterfly monster and smiled. "It should be similar to the hospital where Miss Dance works now. As for other things, I don't know. You didn't go in and just took a look from afar." Luaccio nodded. Later, he learned from Yu Yi that the club was open not long ago. Miss Servant Girl naturally didn't go out because of the former boss. Luaccio thought that Yi should have already memorized the map of this city. She went to buy vegetables every day, so naturally, she was familiar with everything known or unknown about this city for her master. "I haven't been there. A bar for monsters to drink? I'll find some time to go and have a look." "Okay." Luaccio thought for a while and suddenly looked at Luo P and ran. "How's Miss Long recently?" Little Butterfly could interject. She had a strange feeling. She felt that when the boss and Sister Yi talked, they seemed to be in another world. Even if she was here, she didn't feel like she was here. She couldn't describe the contradiction between being here and not being here. She just felt that he and Sister Yu Yi were very far away from her. Do you know my sister Long?" "We've met several times," Luaccio whispered. If you go back and see Miss Long, please tell her that I'm sorry for offending her last time. If she needs it, I'll treat her with the best discount. Okay. Little Butterfly nodded obediently. I know. Luaccio smiled. Can you still eat? Ah. Luo Dance was stunned and then looked at the things in front of her. She blinked and asked in surprise, What's this? It's so beautiful. Layers upon layers of gold and milky white were stacked on top of each other on an exquisite white porcelain plate. Beside the plate, there was a very beautiful pattern of wings outlined with strange red lines, as well as green leaves that were used to decorate it. It's just a simple French jelly. Yi whispered, the golden layer at the bottom is made of lychee honey. The upper layers are osmanthus honey, jujube honey, locust honey, and wild honey. As for the white ones, they are obviously ordinary pure milk, watery milk, goat milk, and coconut milk. I didn't have enough materials, so I only used a little cold sky powder to freeze it into a jelly and spread it layer by layer. As for the red part, it's made of sugarcane juice and then boiled with saffron and maple syrup. As for the side dish, it's made of mint leaves. After the introduction, the maid smiled and said, Miss Pianxian, please enjoy your meal. How was it simple? She didn't understand. The little butterfly monster listened in a daze. Her eyes stared at the crystal clear, bright, and soft things on the plate. She didn't know where to start. I don't want to eat it. This Sister Yi is so awesome. Super awesome. Can I take it back? Luo Dance finally came up with a solution that was not considered compromise. In the end, Luo Dance still couldn't take it away. Instead, she swallowed it because Miss Maid said that it wouldn't last long and would melt, which would affect the taste. Looking at the clean plate, the little butterfly demon felt a great sense of guilt. Just as she was considering whether or not to lick the wings drawn with the syrup on the side clean, she suddenly jumped in fright. It was the sound of a large, old pendulum clock on the side of the club lobby. It's already 10 o'clock. Luo Dance was stunned and jumped up. It's so late. It's just a hangover, it's nothing. Luaccio whispered. It doesn't matter once in a while. No, Luo Dance hurriedly said. I'm going to open the restaurant. Oh no. Because she was in a hurry, little butterfly accidentally kicked a corner of the table. She lost her balance and fell to the ground with her chin on the floor. Chapter 418. Well, it's all right. You didn't bite your tongue. Yi opened Butterfly Monster's lips and checked carefully before putting down the cotton swab in her hand. It's just a scratch on the surface of your mouth. With your physique, it should be healed in a few minutes. Thank you. Luo Dance thanked her very seriously. Little Butterfly really felt that she had lost a lot of face today. She secretly glanced at the boss and found that he seemed to have returned to his previous appearance. The childlike smile just now was an illusion? I remember. Luo Dance suddenly raised her head and stood up quickly. I really have to go back. There's something urgent. With this, Luo Dance rushed out of the club and pushed the door open. It's very interesting. Luaccio looked at the two swinging door panels with a small arc on his face. It seems that the master likes Miss Dance very much. Yi smiled and began to clean up the tableware on the table. When Luaccio was about to say something, the bell in front of the club rang. Luo Dance rushed in again and trotted on the same spot. Boss, I have something to do. If I can't solve it, can I come to ask for your help? Looking at Luo Dance's serious face, Luaccio nodded and said, Of course, the door here will always be open for you. Whoa. Luo Dance nodded. Then I'm leaving. It's really too late. Her figure was like the wind. After finishing her words, the little butterfly monster ran away again. Luaccio and Yi smiled at each other. But this time when the servant girl wanted to say something, she was interrupted again. Jingle. The bell on the door rang again. The little butterfly monster didn't come in this time, but stood in front of the door. Looking at Luaccio and Yi, she took a deep breath and bowed hard. I forgot. Boss, Sister Yi, thank you for your hospitality. The doorbell hadn't rung for a long time, and the butterfly monster had stopped coming and going. She was probably far away by now. Luaccio lowered his head and smiled. Suddenly, he reached out and grabbed a black pouch from the side. He took out the item inside, a handful of electric bess. The electric best that Hong Guan had given to someone else. It was the electric best that Boss Luo had bought from Yudanqiang. The electric best had the word Tian engraved on it. Boss Luo put it on himself and moved his fingers casually. Then he looked at Miss Maid and answered her question. Isn't such a beautiful thing worth liking? Yi sat down beside the boss and silently accompanied him. So there's a built-in audio device. Not bad. Luochio fiddled with it a few more times and said with a smile, let's play a simple solo. Luochio asked, is that okay? Yi said, okay. This was a world that only belonged to him and her. Luo Dance not only remembered that she had to go back to the pet center to open the door, but also remembered that she had more important things to do. After leaving the club, her first reaction was to rush back to the pet hospital to see if Su Zijuan had come back. But when she returned to the pet center, she found that Su Zijuan hadn't come back for the whole night. But Ant Rat Monster, Shu Xiaoshu, and Cheese had been waiting there for a long time. Sister Zijuan didn't have a mobile phone. Little Butterfly Monster found that she couldn't contact Su Zijuan at all. Looking at Ant Rat Monster and her son, she didn't know what to do for a while. What should I do? Shu Xiaoshu began to cry again. She was no different from an ordinary human housewife. Except for being a good wife, her only advantage was that she was able to give birth. Aunt Luo Dance felt sad for a while, but she didn't know how to comfort her. She had the feeling of losing a family member, but she couldn't forget it even if she wanted to. At this time, the back door of the pet center opened, and Su Zijuan walked in expressionlessly. Sister Zijuan, you're back. I'm sorry, I don't know what I did last night. Oh, let's not talk about this. Have you found the news of Uncle Rat Monster? Madam, do you have any news of my husband? Shu Xiaoshu came forward at once. Su Zijuan looked at the anxious Shu Xiaoshu and Cheese, took out a ring from her clothes, and showed it to them. This is Shu Yu's. Shu Xiaoshu was stunned and took the ring with trembling hands. This is our wedding ring. He always wore it on his finger and never took it off. Why? Since it's really Shu Yu's, you can take it back and keep it as a souvenir. Su Zijuan said indifferently. Don't look for him anymore. He's dead. What? Impossible. Shu Xiaoshu suddenly went crazy and grabbed Su Zijuan's hand. You lied to me. I don't believe it. At this time, Su Zijuan's eyes suddenly turned red. She waved her arm, and an invisible force directly threw Shu Xiaoshu and her son out of the back door of the pet hospital. I've done what you asked me to do. Su Zijuan snorted. This ring is the answer. Shu Yu is dead. This is a fact. Don't think you can push me because you're pitiful. Be careful, or I'll drink all your blood. Now get out. Not only the bloody eyes, but also the sharp teeth. The huge momentum from the big monster instantly crushed all the defenses of the mother and son at the bottom of the monster world. Shu Xiaoshu felt a chill from the bottom of her heart. She subconsciously hugged the shivering Cheese, lowered her head, and cried. She gritted her teeth and staggered away step by step. Sister Zijuan, Luo Dance looked at Su Zijuan's appearance in horror. She saw a handful of long hair scattered behind her back. She didn't know whether Su Zijuan's appearance was really horrible at this time. She just felt that the atmosphere suddenly became extremely depressing. Do you want to bother me too? Su Zijuan didn't look back and said indifferently. No, Sister Zijuan, what happened? Shu Yu is dead. This is the answer. Su Zijuan snorted, waving her sleeves, and turned away. I'm going to sleep during the day. Don't bother me. She walked towards the inner room, but after a few steps, she suddenly fell to the ground. Sister Zijuan. The little butterfly monster was shocked. She quickly ran over and shook the body. Su Zijuan's body was always cold, but this time it was much colder than before. She turned over Su Zijuan's body and saw a trace of blood overflowing from her mouth. Sister Zijuan, are you hurt? Go away. Leave me alone. Go away. Su Zijuan said weakly. Go, Sister Zijuan. Su Zijuan's eyes turned extremely red in an instant, showing a crazy color. Her canine teeth seemed to grow a little longer. She reached out and grabbed Luo Dance's arm, biting down directly. She crazily sucked the blood of the little butterfly monster. Zijuan, sister, sister. The little butterfly's consciousness gradually began to fade away. The sky had completely darkened. When Su Zijuan opened her eyes, she found that she was lying on the bed in the room, and the little butterfly monster was lying on the edge of the bed. Su Zijuan struggled to support her body, which seemed to wake up Luo Dance. Luo Dance raised her head slowly. Her face was pale and scary. But when she saw Su Zijuan wake up, she showed a joyful smile. Sister Zijuan, you wake up? Su Zijuan frowned. She suddenly grabbed Luo Dance's arm and pulled open her sleeve. She saw the bite mark on her arm and the dry skin around the bite mark. Sister Zijuan, shut up. Su Zijuan snorted. Then she grabbed Luo Dance's other arm and pulled open the sleeve. She also saw the same bite mark. She put down Luo Dance's arm and frowned. I can't control myself when I need blood, but I still remember. I remember that I just bit one side. What happened to the other side? Luo Dance lowered her head. She was afraid of angering Su Zijuan. She said carefully, Sister Zijuan, you fell asleep later, but you still looked very tired. I was afraid. I was afraid that the blood was not enough, so, are you going to bite me on the other side as well? Su Zijuan was furious. I'm sorry. Aren't you afraid of death? Her eyes turned dark red again because of anger. She scolded in a low voice. Aren't you afraid that I'll suck all your blood? Luo Dance raised her head and said stubbornly, But I'm also afraid that Sister Zijuan will die. You. Su Zijuan pursed her lips. She wanted to say something, but she didn't say it. Looking at Luo Dance's pale face and firm eyes, she always felt that she was very far away from her, like two individuals in two different worlds. Chapter 419. Su Zijuan put her hands on her waist, raised her head, and raised the bottle in her hand. She drank up the red liquid in the milk bottle, blood. Su Zijuan heaved a heavy sigh. She wiped the corner of her mouth and sat down. She crossed her legs and looked at Luo Dance, who was still pale. She said indifferently, You don't want to take the blood of so many monsters from me. You insist on using your own blood. Don't you think you are stupid? Luo Dance was stunned. After thinking for a while, she said surprisingly, Sister Zijuan, you didn't use the blood for testing, but drank it yourself. Su Zijuan sighed and shook her head. One day, you will piss me off. You should be angry at least for a while. Why should I be angry? Little Butterfly asked with her head tilted. The bottle in Su Zijuan's hand was broken by her slightly hard grip, and the glass shards were scattered all over the floor. But seeing this, the little butterfly monster hurriedly stood up. Oh no, Sister Zijuan, did you hurt your hand? Oh, it's dirty. You have to clean it up quickly, or Sister Long will be angry when she comes back. Looking at Luo Dance, who wanted to get the cleaning tools, Su Zijuan gritted her teeth and stood up. She pulled Luo Dance's arm and pulled her to the bed. Su Zijuan turned over and sat on Luo Dance's body. Then she bent down so that the tip of her nose almost touched the tip of Butterfly Monster's nose. She looked at her like this. Sister Zijuan? What's wrong? Luo Dance asked confusedly, although she was pressed down. Look at me, look at my eyes. Su Zijuan said indifferently. Do you see these red eyes? Let me ask you, are you afraid of this pair of red eyes? Luo Dance looked at her carefully for a while and suddenly said, Sister Zijuan, are you heaty? Is there something in your eyes? Do you want me to wipe it for you? This was embarrassing. Su Zijuan coughed twice and got up from the butterfly monster's body. She sat on the edge of the bed and remained silent. Luo Dance also sat up. Sister Zijuan, are you still not feeling well? Shall I get you some more blood? All right, there's no need. You don't have to be so concerned about me. Su Zijuan shook her head and looked at the little butterfly. Her lips moved slightly as if she wanted to say something, but after a while, she suddenly said, Did that rat demon come again? You mean Aunt Mouse Monster? Luo Dance shook her head. She hasn't been here. Sister Zijuan, you were so fierce just now. Are you scared of Annie Mouse Monster and cheese? Is that so? Su Zijuan said indifferently. It's good that it didn't come. You should stop thinking about it and face the reality. It's better for everyone to have a short period of pain than a long period of pain. Sister Zijuan, what's going on? Why did you get hurt? Su Zijuan suddenly sneered. It's just a stupid thing done by a few idiots. If it wasn't for the fact that my injuries haven't healed yet, those guys wouldn't have been able to touch me. Sister Zijuan? Su Zijuan suddenly said, do you know why Long Shirua stayed here? Why is there another Elysium bar besides this one? And why are there more monsters in this city? Luo Dance thought for a while and said, I heard from Grandpa Tree Monster that this area has been rich in aura since ancient times. Is it because of this aura? This is the basis of monster survival. Su Zijuan nodded. Most of the monsters can live without eating for a long time, but they can't live without aura. Now, more and more places have been developed by humans, leaving less and less places for monsters to live. But the aura in this city has been very rich since ancient times. Even though there are many high-rise buildings, it's still much better than some deep mountains and forests. Do you know why? Luo Dance shook her head. Su Zijuan said seriously, that's because there's a huge aura that has existed since ancient times in the deep underground of this place. As the old saying goes, the spirit of the earth is the spirit of the earth and the spirit of the earth. This place is rich in aura, so it's naturally more suitable for living and monsters to live. Luo Dance suddenly said, wow, it turns out that there's an aura here. No wonder I can see so many monsters and some formed souls. And the small animals here are so smart. This aura is one of the few aura veins that is still in its prime. Su Zijuan said indifferently, most of the aura veins in Kelowna are in the period of exhaustion. Long Shirua is the last Shinryu. She found this place with great difficulty, so naturally she has to guard this aura well and not let some hot-headed guys have any ideas about it. Su Zijuan shook her head, but the news that she left recently probably spread. Some greedy guys have begun to be narrow-minded. Luo Dance thought for a while. Although it was quite shocking to know that there was a huge aura here, but what does this have to do with Uncle Rat Monster? Su Zijuan frowned. Last night, I didn't find you because a disgusting guy was coming back. I didn't want to stay, so I left first. After I found a longhorn beetle that was waiting for me. She began to talk about her experience. The longhorn beetle was called by Shiwang. He was an earth monster born and bred in this hill. He had no family and had always lived by himself. He didn't compete with others and hid in the mountains. Occasionally, he would go to the Pure Land of Bliss to drink a few cups of wine and exchange information about the circle of monsters. Day after day, he never thought that he would be held hostage by a powerful monster. For example, the one in front of him, judging from her indifferent aura, was she a real monster? After leaving the Elysium bar, Bai Shuing's drunkenness subsided a lot. After calming down, he naturally knew that he was in a bad situation. That, madam, may I ask which hill you are from? Although Bai Shuing said that he would take Su Zijuan to the place where he lived, he didn't dare to walk in front of this big monster. At this time, he could only ask from behind. Although you are small, you talk a lot. Su Zijuan said indifferently. Bai Shuing opened his mouth. That's all I said on the way, okay? Well, this big monster is probably an aggressive character. I heard from Chichi Kamaya that you seem to have made a fortune recently and spend money in the bar every day, right? Su Zijuan suddenly stopped, turned around, and squinted at the longhorned beetle monster in front of her. This place was remote. It was the suburb of the city in the hill. Su Zijuan's eyes emitted a strange red light, and there was an evil smile on her face. Bai Shuing swallowed his saliva instinctively, and his legs didn't listen to him. He stepped back step by step. Madam, what do you want to do? What do I want to do? Su Zijuan sneered. I want to ask you, why did you take me here on purpose? Madam, I don't know. You don't know? Su Zijuan's voice became colder and colder. Suddenly, she licked her lips and said, don't worry, I will make you remember. I rarely drink the blood of longhorn beetles, and I have no interest in an old one like you. But what? Bai Shuing's legs suddenly softened, and his legs didn't listen to him. He immediately knelt on the ground, his body trembling. Suddenly, an ear-piercing sound rang out all around them, as if something was scratching against glass. Su Zijuan looked up and saw a figure standing in the shadow of a tree under the moonlight. and there was even a voice. "Your Highness, why do you make things difficult for a guy who doesn't know anything?" Bai Shuing suddenly summoned his courage and stood up. "Madam Ghost, save me. I brought all the suspicious guys here, as you said. Madam Ghost, you have to save me." The figure suddenly jumped down from the tree at extremely fast speed. The figure flashed past Bai Shuing and finally stopped in front of Su Zijuan. And Bai Shuing's head had already disappeared. It had been twisted off by the figure's owner and held in his hand. "I asked you to bring all the suspicious guys here, but I didn't ask you to bring the most troublesome ones here. Useless guy, you don't even know this one." The one in front of them had a big shiny bald head, eyes like an eagle, and a pair of fiery red eyebrows. He was very tall, but also very thin. Madam Ghost threw Bai Shuing's head away, and then smiled. "Am I right?" "Your Highness." "Oh, right. Now you're the last descendant of the Xianyuan royal family after reincarnation." Chapter 420. The red-browed, bald man in front of Su Zijuan. Xiang Lu smiled. "Everything in the world has a slim chance of survival. Princess, you should know better than me, right?" Su Zijuan frowned. She was not in the mood to talk nonsense with the guy in front of her. She said directly, "Xiang Lu, since you are not dead, why don't you find a place to live freely? Why do you come back?" "Of course, I come back to thank Lord Long for his kindness," Xiang Lu said indifferently. "We don't mean to offend you. I wonder if you can turn a blind eye to it and just stand by." Su Zijuan narrowed her eyes. Xiang Lu smiled. "Princess, you chose to reincarnate as a real spirit. Didn't you want to get rid of the monster world? In that case, why do you want to get involved in this mess? Xiang Lu can make a comeback today, so naturally, he can't be confused with that day. I hope he can think twice." Su Zijuan suddenly laughed coldly. "Longshaw thought that you're the only descendant of Xiang Lu, so he didn't want the monster world to be reduced again, so he destroyed all your cultivation and drove you out. I didn't expect that after 100 years, you still haven't changed. What are you planning to do now that you've returned? According to your tone, you're going to take this matter?" Xiang Lu said calmly. Su Zijuan said indifferently, "I am not interested in the monster world, but I, Su Zijuan, am not someone who anyone can point fingers at in front of me. Xiang Lu, you're not qualified." "That's a pity, Princess." Xiang Lu sneered. "I call you Princess here, which is already polite. Since you don't want to accept my kindness, then don't blame me for offending you." "You? Princess, don't forget that you are not Shinryu now. You are no different from us now that you have become a Ba." Xiang Lu waved his hand, and the strange purple light on his palm began to flash. "Without the power of Shinryu, you can't suppress me." Su Zijuan waved her hands fiercely, showing her red eyes, sharp teeth, and black sharp nails. There were hills nearby, and only small animals in the hills could feel the two different but inexplicably huge monster powers at the same time. But the animals didn't know that the two people who were fighting here had stirred up the taboo of Kelowna. They looked up and saw two vague streamers in the sky like the night sky. It was beautiful. A dark red light wrapped around Su Zijuan. She was the main attacker. The attacks were like drum beats, ceaselessly beating on Xiang Lu's body like huge waves. Under the storm-like attacks, Xiang Lu's face was calm. Even though he was at a disadvantage, he was like a lurking poisonous snake waiting for the best opportunity to strike. Although the princess is no longer a true dragon, her strength seems to have declined compared to 100 years ago. Has she been in the human world for too long that her sharp claws have been worn off? "Lu, do you want to disturb me?" "Redundant. I like to see how much patience you have. How long can you stand without fighting back? Whether you have the ability to wait for me to show my flaw." Su Zijuan's speed suddenly increased by 2 times. Xiang Lu's face was still calm, but his eyes seemed to be tightened. Only he knew that he had a feeling of being unable to cope with the sudden doubling of speed. Boom! In a split second, Xiang Lu only felt a sharp pain in his chest. He had taken a heavy punch from Su Zijuan. This punch knocked Xiang Lu down into the forest below and completely shattered his contempt for him. Looking at the little figure standing proudly under the night sky and the completely disproportionate blood-red monster power, Xiang Lu wiped the blood on the corner of his mouth and stood up. He looked up at Su Zijuan and smiled. Your Highness is really powerful. I'll ask you one more time. Do you really want to stop me? Humph. No one can order me to do what I like. Princess, Xiang Lu can promise that no matter what I plan to do, I won't continue to offend you, as long as you stop. How about that? What a joke. Su Zijuan sneered. Since you're here, do you think I don't know what you're going to do? How many strong ley lines are there in Kelowna? Every loss of one is equal to cutting off the remaining monster's way of life. Although I don't care about the monster world, I won't stand by if you endanger the whole monster world. Xiang Lu suddenly frowned and said seriously, Princess, I have something to say, but I don't know if it's appropriate. Don't waste your breath. Su Zijuan's bloody monster power surged. Long Shural will miss you guys who are about to go extinct, but I won't. Black clouds cover heaven and earth. Golden armor, flying dragon. Xiang Lu suddenly shouted, 2nd of February, dragon raises its head. Su Zijuan's hand slowed down and the monster power stopped. She said subconsciously, You, why are you? A golden light suddenly shot out from the forest and hit Su Zijuan's back. It even penetrated her body. After the golden light penetrated Su Zijuan's body, it hovered in the sky and flashed back to the forest. Su Zijuan's eyes turned black and fell from the sky directly. Hearing this, Luo Dance subconsciously let out a low cry and began to undress Su Zijuan. What are you doing? Sister Zijuan, isn't your body penetrated? You need to be treated. Luo Dance said naturally. Let me see where the wound is. Is it the chest area? Su Zijuan subconsciously covered her neckline. Didn't this guy know that it was impolite to take off a girl's bra? There's no need for that. Aren't I here in one piece? Su Zijuan shook her head. The wound is already healed, but there is some strange power left. You can't help me. I see. Luo Dance nodded. What happened later? Su Zijuan buttoned her collar and said indifferently, I think Xiang Lu must have other companions. When I was distracted, they used some strange weapons to attack me. I didn't see it clearly, but it seems to be very effective against monsters. But it doesn't seem to be the means of the Taoist priest. So powerful. Luo Dance said worriedly, Sister Zijuan, even you can't defeat him. I was just careless. Su Zijuan snorted heavily. This time it was unexpected. If it happens again, I'll be prepared. Don't even think about hurting me. Oh. Luo Dance nodded with trust, and then asked curiously, Sister Zijuan, what happened to you after you were knocked down? Didn't Xiang Lu catch up with you? Su Zijuan sneered. That guy is so vicious. How could he not catch up with me? But my body was invaded by this strange power, and I couldn't move. Su Zijuan glanced at the little butterfly. She noticed that the little butterfly's face had turned paler. She clenched the quilt tightly and gritted her teeth nervously. Su Zijuan sighed and shook her head. Didn't I come back safe and sound? Don't worry, someone saved me in the end. Who? Su Zijuan frowned. I don't know. I just heard a voice like a woman. Then it suddenly became ice and snow. The sudden cold current blocked Xiang Lu, and I took the opportunity to leave. Oh, who could it be? Luo Dance thought for a while. A woman's voice, could it be that Sister Long came back? If that old woman came back, she would have a fight with Xiang Lu. Why would she make such a diversion? That's right. Luo Dance nodded. By the way, Sister Zijuan, what did that Xiang Lu say? Did he distract you? Nothing, just some disgusting words. Don't worry about it. Su Zijuan said indifferently. Oh. Luo Dance nodded obediently and then worried. Sister Zijuan, you're injured. What if that Xiang Lu and his companions come to find you? What should we do? Even if I gave him 100 guts, he wouldn't dare leave that hill. Su Zijuan shook her head. I was only injured because of the sneak attack, but he doesn't know my details now, so he won't provoke me easily. Besides, if his purpose is really the underground ley line, he won't leave it this time. Su Zijuan sighed. Long Shuo found this ley line and asked me to help her. We worked together to fix this ley line and set 3 seals around the city. The underground of the hill is one of the seals. He wants to unlock this seal, so he can't stop halfway or all his efforts will be wasted. He is absolutely reluctant. But what? Su Zijuan frowned. I don't know the details of Xiang Lu. Except for the guy who attacked me. It's hard to say whether he has other companions. It's hard to guarantee that he won't send some of his companions or subordinates to investigate me. It's too dangerous to stay in a hospital without the old woman. They will come and find me sooner or later. I see. Luo Dance suddenly smiled. So, Sister Zijuan, you drove Aunt Mouse Monster away just now because you are afraid that Uncle Mouse Monster's matter is related to Xiang Lu's matter. So you are afraid that Aunt Mouse Monster will be in greater danger. You think too much. I just don't like crying in front of me. What does it have to do with me whether other monsters are dangerous or not? Su Zijuan snorted. Well, Sister Zijuan, if you say it has nothing to do with you, then it has nothing to do with you. Seeing Su Zijuan stare at her, Luo Dance stuck out her tongue and quickly changed the topic. But, since we can't stay here, where should we go? How about we go to the Elysium world, Sister Zijuan? I think that Mr. Ghostchild seems to be familiar with you. I won't go there even if you kill me. Su Zijuan snorted. Let me go there. I'd rather fight with Xiang Lu again. But you're injured now, aren't you? Luo Dance touched Su Zijuan's head and said, Sister Zijuan, don't be stubborn. Grandpa Tree Monster used to tell me that face is not important, but life is the most important. Go by yourself if you want. I can stay anywhere else. Su Zijuan snorted. And don't touch my head. Luo Dance tilted her head embarrassedly and thought of an idea. We can go to the boss. Let him protect you temporarily. Boss? What boss? Su Zijuan frowned. Although Xiang Lu is not a big monster, he is not less dangerous than a big monster. Not everyone can deal with him. But the boss is really powerful. Luo Dance stretched out her fingers and pinched her thumb and forefinger slightly. But it seems that he has to pay some price. Su Zijuan frowned. Butterfly Monster nodded. Because if you want the boss's help, you have to give him something. This is the rule there. Everything is a transaction. Then let's go. Su Zijuan felt familiar, but she didn't think too much about it. Since it's a transaction, let's go. Su Zijuan, never owe anyone anything. And as I said, don't touch my head. But Su Zijuan didn't expect that Luo Dance would take her to this place, the place in front of her. It was just like a shop on a busy street. The only difference was that it looked a little old. But for Su Zijuan, it gave her a completely different feeling. Chapter 421. In the evening, Luochio cooked dinner, as usual, and sat in the living room watching TV. Sub-editor Ren opened the door like a defeated dog, as usual, and came back from work. I'm back, dragging her voice. Ren Xiling walked all the way in as if her waist was broken. When she came to the back of the sofa, she lay on the back of the sofa and let her upper body slide down to rest on the sofa. She turned her head and looked at Luochio with a haggard face, like a mummy. This almost made Luochio feel that this woman was very suitable to practice gymnastics. Isn't this kind of body movement a bit inhuman? I'm back, Ren Xiling muttered again. Oh, Luochio nodded casually. That's it. Ren Xiling propped herself up and crossed the back of the sofa. She sat on the sofa and stared at it with her eyes wide open. That's it. Luochio, Boss Luo stated. Ren Xiling was sad and almost shed tears. I can't feel the warmth of a family. I'm going to run away from home. Luochio picked up the phone. Ren Xiling curiously asked, What are you doing? Aren't you going to run away from home? Luochio said matter-of-factly. Anyway, I always go to Uncle Ma's house to eat and drink for free. I'll make a call first and ask Aunt to prepare a room for you, so that you won't be in a hurry later. Ren Xiling suddenly held her heart in despair, pursed her mouth, and fell on the sofa as if she had nothing to live for. You have caused 10,000 points of critical damage to me. I am going to die. Next year on Tomb Sweeping Day, you can burn more incense, Luochio drank a mouthful of water. Remember to wash the dishes after eating before you die. Ren Xiling opened her eyes and asked weakly, What did you do? Small wontons. This is good. Ren Xiling giggled, as if she had regained her energy. She got up from the sofa and rushed to the dining table like an Annie who was in a rush to buy a special sale at the supermarket. I'm starving. He hadn't eaten anything the entire day. This damn pear. She asked for leave today, and she even asked for leave for several days. I'm a mess now. Luaccio suddenly stood up. I'm going out to buy something. Ren Xiling was stunned, but Luaccio didn't say anything. He simply changed his shoes and opened the door. Why are you going out so late? What should I buy? Do I still have to wait for you? Ren Xiling held the bowl and walked to the door. Hearing the sound of the door closing, she couldn't help but mutter, so mysterious. This tastes good. Shoo, shoo. It was the sound of soup. It was not the first time for Luo Dance to see the boss in plain clothes. When his figure appeared in the club's lobby, the little butterfly monster suddenly had an illusion that he was like an ordinary person. It was quiet, but without the mysterious and weird feeling of the boss. But Luo Dance soon thought that it must be her illusion, because when she met the boss's eyes, she could clearly feel that unreal feeling from the boss's body. This was an individual from another world. So far, so far. Seeing the boss appear, the servant girl who was serving tea quickly put down the tray in her hand and nodded slightly to Luaccio. Master, Miss Dance brought a guest. This is Miss Su Zijuan. Luaccio looked at Su Zijuan, who was sitting aside. She looked like a young girl, about 15 or 16 years old. She was wearing a red and black dress. As for her skin, it was abnormal. It was the kind of white that couldn't feel the sun for a long time. At this time, seeing Luo coming, Luo Dance quickly stood up and apologized. I'm sorry to disturb you again, boss. Luaccio smiled casually, reaching out to touch his chin, and smiled. Does your mouth still hurt? Luo Dance's face suddenly turned red, reaching out to cover her mouth, murmuring, It doesn't hurt, it doesn't hurt. Seeing this, Su Zijuan suddenly frowned at this time and said indifferently, Little guy, sit down. We are customers, so we don't need to apologize to others. Since this is a place for business, naturally they should serve us. Luo Dance moved her lips. She didn't know how to continue Sister Zijuan's words. Take a seat. Luo smiled. This lady is right. We should be the ones to entertain them. Luo sat down. Is there anything wrong with our service? Miss Su Zijuan. Su Zijuan narrowed her eyes, looking down suddenly, and said indifferently, Are these teas also served to customers? Were they? The maid who was in charge of making the tea was calm, as if she didn't hear it, quietly standing beside Boss Luo. Since her master was not angry, she naturally was not angry. Well, Luaccio nodded and asked indifferently, What kind of tea can make you like it? Blood. Su Zijuan narrowed her eyes, and a dark red color flashed through her eyes. She sneered, especially the blood of a full-term baby girl born on the 14th day of the lunar calendar. You have the best blood here. She opened her eyes a little, looking straight at Luaccio's eyes, and said proudly, Do you have it? At this time, Luo Dance stretched out her hand and quietly pulled Su Zijuan's clothes under the table. But this half-hamba girl seemed to feel nothing and still sneered. What? You don't have it? Miss Zijuan, the 14th day of the lunar calendar has passed for some time. Luaccio didn't nod or shake his head. Now, it's not the season. Su Zijuan said indifferently. Oh, is it? It's said that everything is available here, but it's just a trick. Luaccio said indifferently. The blood that Miss Zijuan mentioned is no longer in the consumables served to customers. But if Miss Zijuan insists on drinking it, you can buy it. I also recommend you to buy it. How much is it? Su Zijuan narrowed her eyes. I don't know the price. You name a price that I can pay now. Luaccio glanced at Luo Dance, who was a little embarrassed, and shook his head slightly. Then he looked at Su Zijuan in front of him. Su Zijuan furrowed her brows. She felt as if something was touching her body, making her feel uncomfortable. At this time, Luaccio said slowly, Miss Zijuan, please cut off a strand of hair as the transaction fee for this special drink. Hair? A strand of hair? Luo Dance opened her eyes wide. It seemed that this was the first time she knew that hair could be used to trade. The little butterfly's bright eyes suddenly looked at Boss Luo. Boss Luo chuckled. Your hair can't buy back your white jade plate. Okay. Luo Dance lowered her head in disappointment. Wait a moment. This little trick of his was seen through in an instant. Hair? It seemed that she didn't expect such an answer. Su Zijuan frowned deeper. Why hair? 3,000 strands of worry. A strand of worry. Hair naturally has its own value. Luochio said indifferently. Miss Zijuan's hair is a treasure of someone's life. But it's too precious, so just a strand is enough. Su Zijuan suddenly stood up. Barefoot, she floated up slightly. Her straight and scattered hair was slightly fluttering. The dark red demon aura flowed on her body like mercury. However, her eyes turned even redder. How dare you? Facing the raging Su Zijuan, Luochio waved his hand to make the servant girl quiet down. Then he said slowly, Miss Zijuan, can you not scare her? Luochio looked at Luo Dance. Su Zijuan also looked at Luo Dance subconsciously. Luo Dance's pale face became even paler. Her lips trembled slightly. It seemed that she wanted to say something. She looked painful, but she still gritted her teeth and held on. She was overwhelmed by the great demon aura of Su Zijuan. Su Zijuan took a deep breath. Her hair was scattered and vertical again. She landed on the ground barefoot. In the blink of an eye, she returned to her delicate appearance like a porcelain doll. She said indifferently, I won't drink this blood. It's too troublesome. Miss Zijuan, what else do you want? Luochio asked. Su Zijuan looked at Luochio and said, I heard that money is not used to trade here. Anything else is accepted, right? Indeed. Su Zijuan nodded and suddenly said, Dance, I have something to talk with the boss alone. You find a place to stay first. Well, Luo Dance was stunned. But seeing Su Zijuan's determined expression, she nodded. Yi smiled and said, Miss Dance, can you accompany me to the kitchen? I'll get you something to eat. Finally, only the new boss of the club and this mysterious girl were left. Chapter 422. The kitchen of the club was much larger than she felt. To be exact, the interior space of the club was much larger than that of the shop on the other side of the street. Luo Dance sat on the high stool in front of the combination cabinet table in the center of the kitchen. She put her hands on the table and blinked her eyes at the club, maid who was fiddling with the things inside like a magic trick. Miss Servant Girl, who was beating eggs with an egg beater, didn't care about it all. At this time, Yi suddenly smiled. Miss Dance, are you worried about your friend? Ah. Luo Dance opened her eyes and looked at this big sister's smile. She felt a little gentle, so she nodded and apologized. I'm sorry, Sister Zijuan is actually not a bad person. She just doesn't mean what she says. Yi put down the egg beater and suddenly asked, Miss Dance, we will never hurt the customers. Really? Luo Dance asked subconsciously. Yi nodded gently. Of course, as long as the customers are not really malicious. The little butterfly seemed to have untied the knot in her heart. She nodded and smiled. Sister Zijuan is really not a bad person at all. Do you like her very much? Yi asked softly. Luo Dance nodded and then counted with her fingers. Yes. Not only Sister Zijuan, but also Sister Long, the uncle and aunt of the bun shop, the uncle and aunt of the pet hospital, and the little butterfly suddenly glanced at Miss Servant Girl on the opposite side of the cabinet table, then lowered her head and said, And Sister Yi and the boss. I like them all. Yi chuckled. It seems that you like all the people you meet. Not really. Luo Dance shook her head. Yi suddenly waved her hand and called the little butterfly to come to her. After getting close to this incredible Sister Yi, Luo Dance saw clearly that the skin of this Miss Servant Girl was like a flawless jade. She couldn't help looking at it more. At this time, Luo Dance suddenly felt something sweet in her mouth. It was very, very sweet. The club's servant girl had already put her finger into the mouth of the dazed butterfly monster. Yi asked softly, Is this sweetness okay? It turned out that the servant girl had used her finger to gently draw a line on the egg. Her finger hooked up some white sticky substance and sent it into the butterfly monster's mouth. Yes. Luo Dance nodded with a red face. Yi smiled. That's good. After a long time, it felt like a long time had passed. However, the The pendulum clock in a corner had only turned 30 degrees, 5 minutes. Su Zijuan had a feeling that she would lose in terms of patience, even though only 5 minutes had passed. Thus, she said, this place is indeed not a good place. Even the air seems to have a magical power, infinitely magnifying the desires in people's hearts. Miss Zijuan, aren't you fine now? Luochio smiled. Su Zijuan shook her head, seeming to not want to continue this topic. After Luo Dance's temporary absence, she seemed to have no constraints. There have been legends about you all over the world, but no one knows when you started to appear. Your origins, your purpose, and your attitude are all mysteries. What do you want to say, Miss Zijuan? Luochio asked. Since everything is a mystery, Su Zijuan said seriously, then why do you make me believe that you can satisfy me? The wealth in the world is nothing to me. As long as I don't want to die, I can live until the end of time. With my ability, there's almost nothing that I can't get. How can you guarantee that you can give me something that I can't get? Luochio thought for a while and said slowly, I'm sorry, Miss Zijuan, we don't have a trial rule here. All transactions are instant. You buy, we sell, that's all. But no matter what you want, as long as you can afford it, we can give it to you. So, no need to test or argue with each other. We always stand on the side of the customer. Tut! Su Zijuan suddenly smacked her lips and sneered. You are really a stubborn guy? Well, let's get to the point. Su Zijuan took a deep breath. I want all my injuries to be healed, no matter new or old. In addition, I also need the information about Xiang Lu. The more detail, the better. Since you are so mysterious, don't tell me that you have no way to know who Xiang Lu is and need me to provide it. Customer, what are you going to use to pay? Pay. Su Zijuan smiled. She suddenly stood up from a chair and walked barefoot on the wooden floor, stopping in front of Luochio. This strange Hamba girl slowly lifted her skirt and smiled. First, she stepped out her left leg and put on Luochio's thigh. His skin, which was so pale that it was almost devoid of blood, was already exposed to the air. She slowly sat on Luochio's thigh. Miss Hamba held the club boss face with her hands and slowly approached, exhaling gently. When her lips were close to Boss Luo's ear, she whispered, Can you use me to pay? Her lips slowly moved down Luochio's ear, as if she wanted to kiss Luochio's neck. Her soft body was cold, but not cold. The Hamba girl in his arms brought a fresh feeling to Boss Luo. When Su Zijuan slightly opened her mouth, she heard such words. Well, Miss Zijuan is the last descendant of the Eastern Xianyuan royal family in this life, but her true spirit is more powerful. Your virgin blood is indeed a precious treasure, but compared to what you want, I'm afraid it's not enough. After all, Miss Zijuan's injuries contain other things, right? But considering that healing injuries and information can be separated, Miss Zijuan, do you want to consider only one of them? Of course, I suggest you to heal your injuries. Su Zijuan's body suddenly seemed to be stiff. Boss Luo said indifferently, In addition, you'd better not try to drink my blood. It will hurt your customer. Aya, you actually said that my virginity is not valuable enough. I'm so sad. Give me a little compensation. Su Zijuan narrowed her eyes and said with a cold tone. Suddenly, she opened her mouth and bit down. Her sharp, canine-like fangs pierced into Luochio's neck, and Luochio slowly closed his eyes. Time paused for a moment, and the world seemed to turn into black and white. Su Zijuan's body was covered by something and pulled away fiercely. She couldn't dodge. She couldn't even struggle. Her body was already suspended in midair. Her hands, legs, and even her neck were wrapped by a black chain. There was no end to these chains, because each of them seemed to be born from nothing, coming from the air. Her face was full of horror. At this moment, she crazily let the blood-red demon aura in her body surge, trying to break free from the shackles of these chains. However, Su Zijuan did not expect that no matter how ferocious the demonic chi was, it was absorbed by the black chain like a clay ox entering the sea. It did not cause any ripples. Luochio opened his eyes and looked sideways at his neck. Then he bent down and picked up a sharp tooth from the ground. Su Zijuan also lost a sharp tooth. She didn't get a single drop of blood from the club's boss. Instead, she lost a tooth. Luocio took out a handkerchief and wiped the tooth clean, then slowly put it on the table. He looked at Su Zijuan, waved his hand to let the chains go away, and then said softly, "Miss Zijuan, your test. Is it enough?" She stood barefoot on the ground and felt the coldness of the wooden floor. She slowly reached out her hand to wipe the blood that flowed out from her mouth because of a tooth that had fallen off. She slowly said, "I have a tomb. There are 30,000 deep-sea demons buried in it. Is that enough?" "What about the location?" Luocio closed his eyes. Soon after, he opened them again and said indifferently, 20,000 is enough to heal Miss Zijuan's wound. 1,500 is enough to buy the information Miss Zijuan wants." Deal. Although it was a deal, Su Zijuan still looked unkind because of the pain in her teeth. It was so painful. Yin 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 PS1. Is there anyone who misses the familiar dividing line? PS2. Happy New Year to everyone. In the new year, I hope you can find a bite partner. PS3. Don't ask me what I mean. For someone like me who is prosperous, democratic, civilized, harmonious, free, equal, fair, rule of law, patriotic, professional, honest, friendly, how would a conscientious player like me who is still writing in the last 10 minutes of 2016 know anything? Chapter 423. The room was about 12 square meters. It wasn't shabby, but it wasn't comfortable either. If one had to describe it, it should be said that it was livable. There was a huge shelf in the middle of the room, which was used as a partition. The shelf was filled with all kinds of records and CDs. This was almost all of Chung Yiran's property. He even regarded it as wealth. His many years of collection were all stored here. The sun had already set, and the lights in the city were lit up. A feeling of hunger woke Chung Yiran up from his sleep. After returning from a nightclub last night, he bought a dozen beers from the convenience store downstairs. One person drank, while the other person kept plucking the strings of the magical electric guitar. He didn't know when he fell asleep. When Chung Yiran opened his eyes, his head was heavy, his stomach was uncomfortable, and his mouth was dry. He didn't get up immediately, but subconsciously rubbed his forehead and then looked at the lights outside through the curtain. Countless times, he looked at the neon lights outside like this. Chung Yiran realized that he hadn't seen the sun at 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning for a long time. He didn't know when he started to perform in various nightclubs, but his days and nights became the same as other people's days and nights. Chung Yiran put his hand down and easily reached the guitar piled on his body. He often fell asleep with the guitar on his body. His fingers casually plucked a few times, and Chung Yiran suddenly sat up. He opened his eyes wide, looking at the guitar in his hand, and even rubbed his eyes hard, and not dreaming. The moment his fingers touched the strings, the feeling of conquering everyone almost spread to his whole body. Ha ha ha. Endless wild began to emerge in his heart, like a burning fire. Chung Yiran laughed alone. Chung Yiran subconsciously picked up the phone. The first name in the phone book was Hongwan's name. He hesitated. He thought of the boss who sold fish eggs and the bag in front of the snack stall. The best. 13 missed calls and 7 messages. In the end, Chung Yiran didn't call this number, but she saw that many people seemed to be looking for her. Among them, 2 were Hongwan, 6 were Manager Dai, and the rest were all unknown numbers. Hongwan left a message asking where he was and what was going on. Manager Dai also left a message asking him what he thought. Chung Yiran read all the way down, and a smile appeared on her face subconsciously. The last message was, "Hello, Mr. Chung Yiran. I am from the Supervision Department of Feiyun Entertainment Company, Limited. I was also at the nightclub last night and saw your performance. Our company is very interested in you. If it is convenient, please call back." Feiyun Entertainment? Chung Yiran was stunned. He didn't seem to have any impression of this Feiyun Entertainment. However, he had never been in contact with a similar record company or entertainment company. He couldn't help but be curious, so he quickly called. "Hello. May I ask who you are?" "I am Chung Yiran." Chung Yiran took a deep breath, but tried to make her voice sound calm. "I saw your message. How do you know my phone number?" "Oh, Mr. Chung Yiran, you finally replied to me. The person on the other side of the phone said happily, "Mr. Chung, I have been waiting for your call for a day. I asked the people in the nightclub for your phone number. By the way, I haven't introduced myself. My name is Li Zifeng." "Oh, Mr. Li, hello," Chung Huran said casually. "Is there anything you want to talk to me about?" "Well, I don't know if Mr. Chung is interested in further development in the entertainment industry." Li Zifeng smiled and said, "Our company is currently preparing several projects, specifically to unearth some promising newcomers. Feiyun Entertainment. I don't think I've heard of it," Chung Yuran said suddenly. Li Zifeng said, "Of course, because the company has just been re-established. Mr. Chung must have not heard of it. But you must have heard of the predecessor of our company, Heaven's Shadow Entertainment Company. Mr. Chung, have you heard of it?" "Heaven's Shadow Entertainment Company?" Chung Yuran gave a start, saying surprisingly, "Is it the company that once made the previous queen, Tu Jia, famous?" "Exactly," Li Zifeng said. "Our company fell into a slump because of some things, the former boss even. But don't worry, Mr. Chung, that's all in the past. Now the reorganized Feiyun Entertainment Company has a huge financial backer that you can't imagine. Our company's strength can't be estimated in the whole world, but in the whole country, it's absolutely first class. This is a very good opportunity. I think Mr. Chung won't give it up, right?" Feiyun Entertainment Company. Chung Yuran's heart beat wildly, but he still tried to calm himself down. But at some point, his palms began to sweat. "I think we can meet." Chung Yuran took a deep breath and said. His luck had changed. In the club, it seemed to last forever. In front of Su Zijuan, an ancient sheepskin scroll unfolded slowly. She needed to press her palm on it to establish the deal with the club. Her eyesight was naturally not comparable to ordinary monsters. But even so, she still couldn't figure out how the sheepskin scroll appeared. Here, there was a kind of mysterious power flowing all the time, bypassing all her senses, even isolating all her senses to the outside world. Through the observation of this sheepskin scroll, Su Zijuan got a shocking conclusion. This small shop had its own system, as if it was completely independent of the present world. But at the same time, it was inextricably linked with the present world, which was hard to touch. "Customer, the contract will take effect after you press your palm on it." Luochio looked at Su Zijuan calmly and said. After thinking for a few seconds, Su Zijuan nodded. Her fingers slowly approached the sheepskin scroll. As she got closer, she could feel a binding force beginning to form around her. Not only her body, this force seemed to be able to bind her spirit and even her soul, and something deeper in her soul. At the moment when her fingers were about to touch the sheepskin scroll, Su Zijuan suddenly raised her head and looked at Luochio in front of her. "What are you?" Luochio seemed to be thinking about this question carefully. "I am also looking for the answer." Su Zijuan finally pressed the bill on the sheepskin scroll. She didn't feel any discomfort on her body, but she felt as if there was a mark deep in her body. A mark was made. That's it. Not long after, Su Zijuan frowned. She subconsciously looked at her hands and squinted at Luochio. "Why are my injuries still there?" "Miss Zijuan, your injuries are too serious," Luochio calmly said. "The soul tomb you mentioned before, even if all the souls were added together, it wouldn't be able to heal your injuries immediately." Su Zijuan narrowed her eyes and said coldly, "In other words, you are deceiving me, right?" No. Luochio shook his head and said, "It will only slow down your recovery." As he spoke, Luochio took a tall glass from the club's bar and put it in front of Su Zijuan. From the bottom of the glass, some strange liquid began to emerge. It was dark red, but there were a lot of golden light spots in it, like tiny grains of golden sand. The thick dark red liquid mixed with the golden sand began to appear from the bottom of the glass. Then it slowly began to rise, until the liquid occupied about a quarter of the glass. Then it stopped. Su Zijuan's nose twitched, and she said in surprise, "This is blood." But she couldn't smell the blood. Only her body's instinct told her that it was indeed blood. And it was blood that gave her an irrepressible impulse. "Of course." Luochio smiled and pushed the glass to Su Zijuan. "Drink it. Miss Zijuan's injuries should be able to fully recover in 2 days internal and external injuries. Su Zijuan didn't immediately take action, but said in a low voice, "Whose blood is this?" Chapter 4:24. Someone was standing sneakily in front of the pet hospital behind a lamppost on the street. He was wearing black sunglasses, a huge yellow waterproof windbreaker, and a fisherman's hat. Yes, he was also holding a newspaper to cover his face. Brother Xiaosheng felt that his disguise was absolutely first class. "Mom, there is a weirdo there. Don't talk nonsense. Let's go, Brother Xiaosheng." Brother Xiaosheng raised a finger to greet the mother and son who were pulling their son away. "Oh, what do you know?" Brother Xiaosheng gritted his teeth. He would not be so easily defeated by the words of these human beings, okay? He was Son Xiaosheng, the great monster beast, okay? Brother Xiaosheng raised his eyes and continued to look at the pet center in front of him. He frowned. There is no reason. Since Zijuan is back, shouldn't she stay here? Brother Xiaosheng could not feel Su Zijuan's monster aura from this pet center. Not to mention Su Zijuan, even Long Shuruo's monster aura was not there. Although there were countless ways to hide the monster aura at the level of a great monster, Brother Xiaosheng thought that it would be strange if he could not even smell a trace of monster aura at this distance. There was a piece of red paper at the door of the pet hospital. "The owner is pregnant. Rest for a few days." Brother Xiaosheng's eyes began to turn a few times, and he muttered, "Is Zijuan afraid that I will come here to find her? So she ran away and hid from me. She's so shy, really." Brother Xiaosheng looked at the sky with a smile. "Mom, there's a weird uncle there. So disgusting. Don't talk nonsense. Let's go." My butt seems to have been poked by something." Under the lamppost, the figure wearing a yellow waterproof windbreaker, holding a newspaper, and wearing a pair of sunglasses was no longer there. The child covered his butt and muttered to his mother. For a big demon like Brother Xiaosheng, who had no shame in taking off his pants in the Elysium bar, he naturally wouldn't retreat because of a few words from a child. He just felt that there was a trace of gloomy and cold demon aura nearby. So he curiously went to take a look. That's all. In a small alley not far from the pet center, there were two different demonic auras coming from the narrow gap between two buildings. The owner of the weak demonic aura was sitting on the ground, leaning against the wall, his face full of fear. Some of the characteristics of a monster had already begun to appear on his body. It had a dog's nose and ears, so it should be a canine-type demon. My lord, you are from that mountain. I don't think I have offended you." The dog demon trembled and didn't dare to look at the guy in front of him. His entire body emitted a demonic aura that terrified him. This was a type of demonic aura that carried the aura of death. "I won't kill you, but tell me, where did the people in the hospital go?" The figure asked indifferently. I don't know." The dog demon said in fear, "My waist is not feeling well today, so I came to look for Lord Long to take a look. I didn't know it was closed these few days. You don't want to tell the truth." That voice suddenly sneered. The dog demon suddenly lay on the ground, his hands buried Zijuan's head, and said in fear, my lord, I'm just a little monster. I can't talk to Lord Long. Where did she go? I really don't know. I'm not asking about Long Shuruo, but the other one." "The other one?" The dog demon was stunned and said subconsciously, "Is it the new little butterfly demon in the hospital? We're not familiar with each other. We just met a few times. Not this one. Is it the other one? I'm talking about her." The dog demon swallowed his saliva and said, "My lord, I'm even less familiar with the one you're talking about. I only know that she's called Zijuan. She doesn't usually show up. I don't know anything else." "Humph, you're really a wretch." That voice was colder. "It seems that you won't shed tears until you see the coffin." With that, the owner of the voice, who was wearing a black windbreaker and a hat, suddenly stretched out 5 fingers, and a faint purple light began to twine between his fingers. My lord." The dog demon was terrified. "Don't mess around. Lord Long has a rule that demons are not allowed to kill each other under her eyes." "Long Shuruo?" The man snorted coldly. His fingers opened and was about to cover the dog demon's head, but he didn't succeed in the end, because before that his arm was grabbed by someone. It was firmly grasped. Ah, buddy, it's not fun to bully these little guys, right? The newcomer lowered his head and stretched out his hand to cover the brown fisherman's hat on his head. The yellow coat on his body was still swaying. Apparently, he came in a hurry, and the wind was still flowing here. It's Brother Xiaosheng. Meddlesome. The figure in black snorted coldly, and the purple light in his hand suddenly burst out. Only a hissing sound was heard. Brother Xiaosheng frowned and snored softly. When he released his palm, an invisible distance broke out between him and the figure in black at the same time. And at the same time, both of them were pushed away. Brother Xiaosheng's sunglasses and hat were blown off, and the other person's hat was also blown off, revealing their true faces. Brother Xiaosheng, who took a step back, was stunned and subconsciously said, "Bald, purple eyebrows?" The figure in black, who took a step back, narrowed his eyes and said indifferently, "I heard that there's a strange guy here in the past 50 years. I think it's you, Sun Xiaosheng." "Huh, have you heard of my name?" Brother Xiaosheng blinked a few times. "Since you know it's me, why don't you back down? I've heard of you, but you're just an ordinary stone monkey who got some opportunities. How dare you call yourself a saint?" "Ha, buddy, I didn't see how capable you are, but you're good at talking. I like it." Brother Xiaosheng laughed strangely. "Come on, if you want to fight, I have 100 ways to make you kneel on the keyboard. Don't you know that I have a name called Keyboard Warrior on the major forums? Ridiculous. The dignity of the demon race is thrown away by a guy like you." He snorted coldly. "As a great demon, you don't know how to restore the glory of the demon race. You only know how to mix in a human world and open a broken bar. You're like a waste all day long." "Ha, retard." Brother Xiaosheng laughed strangely again, picked up the hat on the ground, and put on again. "Ha, I don't know where you came from, but from what you said just now, it seems that you are looking for trouble with the woman I like." Brother Xiaosheng patted his collar and smiled. "Ha, I'm very easygoing. Those who know me know that. But ha, there are some small problems occasionally, that is." His face turned serious. Monkey face, Azura face. "If I don't like it, I will definitely beat it." Brother Xiaosheng didn't do anything, but after his figure flashed, the demon dog lying on the ground holding his head heard a deep sound, and even a vibration from the ground. He opened his eyes and saw Brother Xiaosheng's arm hanging straight down, and the man in black had been punched in the chest by Brother Xiaosheng, leaving dozens of cracks on the concrete floor. He was not the Monkey King in the ancient legends, but Sun Xiaosheng, but he was also a king. Su Zijuan suddenly shuddered and stopped with a strange look. Just coming out of the club, it was like returning from one world to another. Su Zijuan frowned at this time, looking at a certain direction of the city thoughtfully. Luo Dance, who accompanied her out, felt strange. "Sister Zijuan, did you forget something in the boss's place?" Su Zijuan was stunned. "Why do you think I forgot something?" Luo Dance blinked her eyes. "Because I forgot something. Look." Luo Dance raised the backpack in her hand. The little butterfly monster remembered to say thank you when she left in a hurry last time, but forgot to carry a small backpack. "I didn't forget anything," Su Zijuan said indifferently. "I just had a sudden feeling of nausea." "Forget it. It will only make me feel more nauseous. Let's go before dawn. We have to get to the second seal." Chapter 425. In the night sky, there seemed to be a vague whirlpool. It was not a wandering cloud, but something else, something more abstract. Yi looked up at the night sky. She returned to the club after wiping the last part of the club's display window. Just like usual, Miss Maid found that her master was looking at a map at this time. The map floated in the air and opened in front of Luochio. It was the map of the city. Finished wiping things. Feeling that Miss Maid came in, Luochio did not look back, still looking at the map. Come and have a look. I have never looked at the map of the city seriously." Miss Maid walked to Luochio's side and began to look carefully, at the same time asking softly, "Master, are you thinking about the underground ley line?" Luochio nodded and said, "Miss Su Zijuan, who just left, came for this. Look." He took Yuye's hand and came to the other side of the map. At the same time, he stretched out his hand in front of the map. The buildings marked on the map gradually disappeared on the map, and finally, only the most primitive landform of the city remained, and something more difficult to measure deep underground. The map in front of them even began to change into a three-dimensional pattern. Not only the surface of the city, but also the distribution of the underground structure of the city. Yi looked at this three-dimensional distribution map, and at this time, it began to show three different light spots. Master, these three are the locations of the underground ley line seal. Luocio nodded again, then stretched out his hand and roughly drew a line on the three-dimensional map with his finger. The curved line was like a tadpole and finally lit up. Luocio said, "This is the shape of the underground ley line. What do you think?" Miss Maid frowned slightly. "It's like Rupert's tear. At the beginning, only the shape reminded me of it." Luocio paused. "Now after peeling it, I'm afraid it has the same characteristics as Rupert's tear." Yi thought for a while, stretched out her hand, and pointed at the three different light spots. The seals of the ley line one by one. "This is the seal that Xiang Lu intends to erode. This is the seal that Miss Su Zijuan intends to go to, and this..." Finally, Yu Ye's finger came to the position of the third seal, which seemed to be the end of the ley line. "Unexpectedly, there is also a seal here." Miss Maid shook her head. "This is not a layer of insurance, but a time bomb." Luocio sighed. "If the third seal is not opened in the normal way, it will cause great pressure. According to the characteristics of Rupert's tear, the ley line will completely explode in an instant, and this city will suffer an unprecedented earthquake." Yi narrowed her eyes slightly. "Well," Luocio thought for a while. "Longshaw didn't do it on purpose. From her behavior and Tei Yinzi's description, she has no reason to do so. Then, there's probably only one reason that can be guessed." Miss Maid, who is always smart, suddenly showed a helpless look, whispering, "This Miss Long probably doesn't like physics." Luocio was silent. He remembered that Longshaw seemed to be a pet doctor. Every once in a while, she needed to float up a little and try to get as close to the ground as possible to let her body rest. Longshaw felt that even with her special physique, it was a hard job to pay attention to the flow of the ley line all the time. At this moment, she was just resting, and below her was a piece of red lava. Suddenly, Longshaw's nose felt a little itchy. Maybe it was because of the pungent smell of sulfur here. She didn't manage to sneeze. She rubbed her nose and said, "I've been out for a while now. Could it be that something happened?" But Longshaw quickly shook her head. Compared to this small abnormality, she was more concerned about the cause of the ley line's movement. Besides, although she left, Su Zijuan was still in the pet center, a monster she could trust. "It should be fine." Longshaw took a deep breath and dived into the lava below again. "It's so hot. Take off your clothes." The dog demon didn't know the origin of the black clothes guy that made him so scared, but he was very clear about the guy in front of him who directly smashed the black clothes guy to the ground, smashing a hole in the ground, and had a ferocious monkey face. He hadn't been in human form for a long time, but he had heard of the owner of the Elysium Bar from the older generation more than once. The older generation said that Sun Xiaoxing's fame was not because of the Elysium Bar, but because of his fist. Long before the opening of the Elysium Bar, he had used his fist to strike a huge thunderbolt in the world of monsters. Legend had it that Brother Xiaoxing even challenged the supreme Lord Long in the monster world, but no one knew the result. But he was still here at this time. So, even if he was defeated, he still had a valiant record of fighting Lord Long alone and not dying. He was still alive now. Also, the Elysium Bar was so expensive. "Huh, is that all you can do?" Brother Xiaoxing's fist still did not leave the opponent's chest, but he kept pressing the opponent to the ground. But he soon felt that something was wrong. Although he punched the opponent had no power to fight back, which made Brother Xiaoxing feel a little strange. Brother Xiaoxing frowned, stood up, and found that the guy fell to the ground. There was a huge concave shape on his chest, but he was motionless. "Dead?" Sun Xiaoxing murmured. Then he lifted the black-shirt guy with his foot. Suddenly, a sense of danger made Sun Xiaoxing's hair stand on end. He didn't even think about it. His figure flashed, and he lifted the dog monster lying on the ground. He jumped high, grabbed a sewer pipe between the buildings with one hand, and stopped in the wall. The guy lying on the ground suddenly exploded, and a purple mist began to spread. Whether it was the cement floor or the walls, they were instantly corroded and melted after being contaminated by the purple mist. Not good. This thing is still spreading. Sun Xiaosheng frowned and threw away the dog beastkin in his hand. Then he took a deep breath and crossed his arms in front of him. There seemed to be countless invisible palms in the air, quickly pushing all the scattered purple mist back to the original place. Sun Xiaosheng's hands began to turn clockwise, and the purple mist was gathered to his side little by little. It gradually condensed and finally compressed into a purple bead the size of a fist. Sun Xiaosheng looked at it for a while. Then he suddenly opened his mouth and swallowed it directly into his stomach. The dog monster's face suddenly turned pale. Oh no! Suddenly, Sun Xiaosheng grabbed his neck with both hands in extreme pain. His body even began to stagger. He made a retching appearance, and his face was covered with black gas. Master! Master! Are you okay? The dog monster ran to Sun Xiaosheng in horror, but he saw Sun Xiaosheng directly fell to the ground at this time. He stretched out his hand as if he wanted to grab something. The pain on his face was even more intense. Master! Why are you so impulsive? Although you are powerful, you can't swallow such a poisonous thing casually. What should I do? The dog monster was at a loss. He thought to himself, will this master not die if he doesn't seek death? Sun Xiaosheng squeezed out some words from his throat. The dog monster said with a bitter face, Master, you saved my life. Tell me, what is your wish? Even if I have to risk my life, I will help you to complete it. Please tell me. He bent down and put his ear close to Sun Xiaosheng's mouth, listening carefully. I. Sun Xiaosheng's voice became weaker and weaker. Even with the dog monster's hearing, he still couldn't hear it clearly. He couldn't help but get closer again and cried, Master, tell me, what's wrong with you? I. Sun Xiaosheng suddenly opened his eyes. I'm fine. I lied to you. Ha ha. A thunderous voice rang in the demon dog's ears, causing him to feel as if he was about to go deaf and see stars. At this time, Sun Xiaosheng didn't get up. He just lay on the ground and laughed. Ha. Master, how could the dog monster not know that he was teased at this time? He kept rubbing his ear that seemed to be deaf. Looking at Sun Xiaosheng, who was about to cry from laughing, he sighed silently. Chapter 426. This city was crossed by a river. Every day and night, there were ferries to shuttle people from both sides of the river. When Luo Dance was free, she would take a small ferry from one side to the other. She liked the water vapor of the river. However, she had never thought that at the bottom of this river, there was actually an underground spirit vein seal. Su Zijuan took her into the water and pushed open a huge rock on the riverbed. This was the entrance to the second seal. When they came to the destination, they saw a large number of golden words on the stone wall in the depth of the cave. These were like curses. They were almost written all over the deepest part of the cave. The little butterfly had been very obedient. Until they came here, she dared to ask, Sister Zijuan, shouldn't we go to find Xiang Lu? Why did we come here first? Su Zijuan looked around and said indifferently, It will take me 1 or 2 days to recover, so it's not a good time to take the initiative to attack. Xiang Lu has a helper behind him. I guess Xiang Lu will speed up the destruction of the first seal and then find this place directly. But it doesn't matter. As long as the 3 seals are not opened, it won't work. So, let's wait for them here. Oh, Luo Dance nodded. Sister Zijuan wants to sneak attack them. Who am I, Su Zijuan? Do I need to sneak attack them? Su Zijuan said fiercely. This is called saving energy and waiting for rabbits. The little butterfly blinked, then blinked again, and nodded fiercely in fear. Su Zijuan did not say anything more and simply sat down cross-legged. Luo Dance suddenly shouted at this time, Wait! What's the matter? Wait! Luo Dance said quickly and began to rummage through her backpack. She took out a folded piece of patterned cloth and spread it on the ground. Then she opened her hands and laughed happily. Thump! It's done. You can sit down now. Do you take these things with you when you go out? Su Zijuan rubbed her forehead. The little butterfly said matter-of-factly, "That's right. Ani taught me to bring more things with me when I go out, just in case. There's also an umbrella, a flashlight, and, one by one, he took out the items in the backpack as if he was showing them off. Finally, Luo Dance took out a small bottle from her backpack. The bottle was filled with red liquid. She held it with both hands and presented it to Su Zijuan. She played with her eyes and said with a smile, "And here's your rations, Sister Zijuan. I've already filtered it with a sieve, so it should taste very good." You brought this too? Su Zijuan was stunned. Luo Dance nodded. "Yes, I took some with me when I left the pet center. I was afraid that you would be hungry." Do you think this is a picnic?" Su Zijuan suddenly said angrily. "Don't you have any sense of crisis?" Sorry. Luo Dance quickly apologized. "Forget it. Put it down. I'll eat it when I'm hungry." Su Zijuan sighed heavily. Then, she suddenly spat out a bead from her mouth and threw it to Luo Dance's hand. She said indifferently, "Swallow it, and see how much you can refine in these 2 days." Luo Dance held the bead and looked at it. It seemed that something was swimming inside, which was quite mysterious. She even felt the extremely pure and huge demon power inside. She couldn't help but be surprised. "Sister Zijuan, what's this?" "Nothing." Su Zijuan sat down with her legs crossed. "Just before we left, I bought a small toy with the shop owner. You're too weak to help at all. Swallow it and increase your demon power." Increase. Luo Dance only felt that the demon power in the bead was dozens of times more than her own. How could this be called increase? "I can't take it." Luo Dance shook her head and gave the bead back. "Sister Zijuan, you have to deal with Xiang Lu and others. Isn't it better for you to increase your demon power? I told you to swallow it, so just swallow it. Why are you talking so much nonsense?" Su Zijuan snorted coldly and ordered sternly, "Swallow it." This suddenly scared butterfly monster. She put the bead into her mouth with both hands and covered her mouth. She stared at Su Zijuan and didn't dare to say a word. She couldn't control her throat and swallowed the bead into her stomach. Luo Dance suddenly coughed several times. "Sister Zijuan, this thing is so big and hot, cough, cough. You've swallowed it no matter how big it is, haven't you?" Su Zijuan said indifferently. Luo Dance suddenly covered her stomach and showed a painful expression. "Sister Zijuan, what did you make me eat?" I feel so hot, so hot." Luo Dance subconsciously began to undress herself, and her mind began to blur. So hot, so hot. That's right. Su Zijuan narrowed her eyes and walked to Luo Dance. "This is worth 10,000 souls. It's almost the same value as the cup of Cain's blood I bought. You should gain some weight." But Luo Dance, who was in a confused state, couldn't hear what Su Zijuan was saying. The hot thing in her body began to spread in her lower abdomen, bringing unprecedented stimulation to her body. Luo Dance fell to the ground. She had taken off all her clothes and started to curl up her body. Her fingers unconsciously grasped the ground. Her toes tightened and curled up. She clenched her silver teeth and groaned in pain. Wave after wave of heat almost engulfed her consciousness. "Sister Zijuan, it's so hot. Su Zijuan gently lifted Luo Dance's head and said softly, "Just bear with it. It's okay." She lowered her head and kissed Luo Dance's neck. Like sucking, her sharp teeth slowly pierced into Luo Dance's body. Then she controlled the blood in Butterfly Monster's body and began to sort out the violent demon power in her body. The golden spell seal in the cave flashed. Su Zijuan and Luo Dance hugged each other and gradually calmed down. It was extremely beautiful. "Drink it. This is the boss's treat." Ghost Baby placed a large orange-red cup of Elysium drink in front of the dog monster. Dog monster was stunned and subconsciously looked up at the room on the second floor of the bar, the office. He remembered that it used to be a rather stylish floor-to-ceiling glass, but now it was just nailed up with some planks to block it. Dog monster vaguely saw Sun Xiaoxing's back through the gap. Sun Xiaoxing was sitting in a big office chair with his legs on the table. His hands were behind his head. He was probably chatting with someone. Thank you. Dog Monster nodded and took the big cup in Ghost Baby's hand. Thank you, Master Ghost Baby. Ghost Baby sneered. He just sneered and didn't mean anything. What's your name? Me? Dog Monster was stunned and subconsciously said, Yiksha. My name is Yiksha, but my friend recently began to call me Erha. Master Ghost Baby can call me Erha. Okay. Ghost Baby nodded and stepped aside. He silently played with the knife in his hand and looked at the entrance of the bar. He was the gatekeeper here. Upstairs, Chichi Kamaya frowned, bald head, purple eyebrows. Purple poisonous gas. Sun Xiaosheng had already said what he encountered once. Ha! Chichi Kamaya. I feel like I have heard it somewhere, but I can't remember it at once. You old turtle, do you know? Boss, is this guy's monster spirit also purple? Chichi Kamaya asked with a slightly dignified face. It should be. Sun Xiaosheng thought for a while. Well, it also has a sense of coldness. Although most of the monster's power is gloomy and cold, this guy's is special, filthy. That's it. Chichi Kamaya nodded and said seriously, Boss, I think the guy you met is probably Xiang Lu who escaped from Lord Long. Xiang Lu? Chichi Kamaya nodded. Yes, it's Xiang Lu. He is already the last descendant of Xiang Lu. At the beginning, he killed a large number of monsters to refine an extremely evil thing. He tried to completely open the origin of Xiang Lu and evolve into a real monster. Unfortunately, he met Lord Long. Finally, Lord Long abolished all his monster spirit and expelled him from the land of Kelowna. Xiang Lu broke the rules. Why didn't the old woman kill him? Sun Xiaosheng was stunned. He should have been killed. Chichi Kamaya shook his head and said, But boss, you also know the situation of the monster race. He is the last one of the Xiang Lu family. In addition, during the last great calamity, it was the Shangliu clan who did their best to buy some time. Perhaps it was the great kindness of the demon realm that protected him, so Master Long was merciful to him. It turns out that he is the descendant of a hero. That old woman is not good at all. She is fussy and nostalgic. Sun Xiaosheng shook his head, Xiang Lu. It turns out to be him. I remember, I have heard of this guy's name when I was reading the Monster Rampage Daily. Yes. Chichi Kamaya only pretended that he didn't hear the last sentence of Sun Xiaosheng. He said with emotion, I didn't expect that he could make a comeback. It seems that he has recovered his strength. I don't know what tricks he is thinking. Boss, I heard that Lord Long went out. I think we should be on guard. Chapter 427. Deep in the hills outside the city, the moon was in the middle of the sky. At this time, there were sounds of insects, wind, and footsteps. Xiang Lu's footsteps and the sound of something being dragged. Xiang Lu walked into a secret cave and slowly walked to the depth of the cave. There were also a lot of golden spells here. Of course, they were supposed to be golden, but now they were very dim, as if they would fade away at any time. This was the first seal point. But obviously, there was not only Xiang Lu here, there was another one, a man in a casual suit, but looked quite down and out. He looked to be in his 30s. His roots were a little sparse, and his black hair was tied into a bundle and casually pinned behind his head. The man was leaning against a wall. He was holding a slender object wrapped in a large amount of cloth. It looked like a stick or something else. Hearing the footsteps, the man slightly opened his eyes. He was not afraid of Xiang Lu, even though he saw the things in Xiang Lu's hands. Xiang Lu was holding a monster in each of his hands. He looked very weak, but he wasn't dead yet. The man said indifferently, Didn't I tell you that the seal is about to be eroded, so don't wander around? Xiang Lu threw away the monsters in his hands, sitting up with his legs crossed. He tore off one of the monster's arms, crack. The bones were twisted and blood burst out. Xiang Lu bit the flesh of the arm, chewing and saying, I'm hungry. The man said indifferently, don't provoke that female monster. I don't want to make any mistakes in this project. Xiang Lu narrowed his eyes. Oh, didn't Su Zijuan's body get penetrated by you? Why? Don't you have confidence in yourself? Last time, someone helped her secretly. Su Zijuan escaped. So what's wrong with me chasing her? The man said calmly, As you said, someone helped the princess secretly, but we still don't know who it is. Xiang Lu said carelessly. Although that guy helped Su Ziju and escape, he was shot by you in the end, didn't he? Although I don't know where he came from, he didn't have the hide if he was strong enough. Since you shot him in the body, he should have died in that corner. The man said indifferently, it can happen at any time. If I don't see it with my own eyes, I will never judge whether the enemy is really dead or not. Besides, including the demon princess you're talking about, we've met at least 2 enemies or maybe 3. Xiang Lu, you are injured. Xiang Lu just kept biting the monster's arm without saying a word. He had never fought with Sun Shaosheng. Sun Shaosheng appeared after he was expelled. Then, he didn't want to fight with Sun Shaosheng in the city. However, it was a fact that he had suffered a loss because of this. That monkey of unknown origin seemed to be more difficult to deal with than he had heard. But Xiang Lu had to take revenge. Even if it was just a verbal revenge after he swallowed the whole arm, he looked at the man coldly and said, Cook, isn't it because your people are late that this matter has been delayed again and again? If you promise to have enough people, why do you have to wait until now and worry about so many things? The man, Cook said calmly, I've already said that the order of the club is to temporarily hide and stop all the current actions and projects, so we won't get reinforcements in a short time. Now, if you didn't start the action privately, we could be more careful. Xiang Lu suddenly sneered. Continue to wait? Are you kidding? I don't know why Long Shirua left, and I don't need to know. But this is definitely the best time. You don't know the horror of Long Shirua. Shinryu of Kelowna will record everything. Don't mess with it, Cook said indifferently. I won't look down on any enemy, but I will also try to see if my spear can penetrate her. I hope you won't be torn by her claws first. Xiang Lu sneered. Cook closed his eyes, but before he closed his eyes, he finally said, Xiang Lu, the club is very dissatisfied with your private action this time. You have got enough in the club. If you fail this time, the club wants me to tell you that we will get back what we invested in you. Xiang Lu narrowed his eyes at Cook and suddenly asked, What is the club afraid of? Why do you choose to hide overnight and even stop so many activities? Cook didn't open his eyes again to talk. Xiang Lu naturally didn't get the answer. He had to continue to eat the rest of the monster's bodies. The spells on the rock walls in the cave were getting dimmer and dimmer. Soon after, Xiang Lu left some parts of the 2 monsters' bodies and threw them into a pit in the center of the cave. There seemed to be something wriggling slowly in it. Xiang Lu narrowed his eyes and looked at the things in the pit, sneering, The club's technology is very good. Grow up quickly. There were dozens of specks of light in the pit. They looked like eyes after eyes. With the light emitted by the spells in the cave, some dark red and sticky liquid could be vaguely seen in the pit. It covered the entire bottom of the pit, and in the center of the liquid, there was a huge meatball. There were many strange parts on the meatball. There were hands, legs, horns, and so on. There were also different faces. There were many. Was she meddling in other people's business? Lizzie looked at the moon that was not so round, hiding in the corner of the dense vegetation under the tree. She didn't even know how far it was from the city. But even if she knew, she didn't have the strength to walk there. Lizzie subconsciously looked at her chest. There was a wound that couldn't be healed and kept taking away her life. Why was it like this? It was because when she was having fun in the Elysium world, she saw a rat monster talking with a licker. She was curious, so she followed them. But she lost the rat monster here. She didn't find anything for a long time. Finally, she met 2 guys with horrible monster aura fighting here. I'm really meddling in other people's business. Lizzie sighed. It was only because she couldn't bear to see one side being ambushed by the other side, so she lent a helping hand. But she ended up like this. As for the person she helped, she ran away without saying anything. Was there something wrong with the script? Even if they left temporarily, they would come back quietly to find out the truth. Finally, they found her and tried their best to heal her out of gratitude. I really don't want to die in this dress. Lizzie looked at the hot pants and vest she was wearing. What the hell? This was obviously a little different from her ideal appearance when she died. She hoped that one day, she would be able to wear a white dress and lie tightly on the snow in a gentle snowy day. Perhaps it would be day or night, perhaps it would be night. Only after taking one last look at this world would she finally leave. Forget it. That's it. She had no relatives. She had no partners. She was always alone. It seemed that it was a good choice to leave quietly in such a deserted place where no one would find her in the future. Just take it as a long vacation that will never end. Lizzie slowly closed her eyes. Anyway, I will soon forget. She felt the cold. This was the second time she felt cold in her life. It turned out that she could feel such cold when she died. She suddenly felt extremely cold, but at this time, she seemed to become warm. It was the warmth of her consciousness, not her body, because she knew that her body would never have heat. Even if ordinary people could feel it, it would only be an illusion. But she still felt something different from the cold. Since it was different, was it warmth? There was also a faint fragrance that she seemed to have smelled somewhere. It was so comfortable. I don't want someone to come home every day screaming that she will die of exhaustion and run away from home. Chapter 428. Luo Qiu wet the handkerchief with some water and then gently wiped Lizzie's face to wipe away the dirt on her face. Lizzie was asleep. She looked very peaceful. This was an empty farmhouse nearby. It was very simple and crude, or rather, it was completely empty. Boss Luo felt that Lizzie would be fine even if she slept on the ground, so he just swept away the dust on the ground. Miss Maid pushed the door and came in. Luochio cleaned his hands and said, "She's in danger, so I'll do it myself. Don't bother yourself this time." Yui just smiled and glanced at Lizzie lying on the ground. If it wasn't Lizzie, it wouldn't be treated like this. Of course, Miss Maid, who knew this, wouldn't say it out. "Master, Xiang Lu's hiding place has been found. Although Xiang Lu is ordinary, I should be able to feel something if I get too close to him." Luochio nodded. "Anything else?" Yui said, "In addition to the cooperator, there seems to be something else. It feels like something ugly, full of despair and wailing." "Yes," Luochio said indifferently. "It's an internal matter of the monster race. Since it's not a customer's request, it has nothing to do with us. Su Zijuan should be able to recover in a day or two. If there was any conflict between her and Xiang Lu, let them solve it by themselves. As long as the city won't be blown up, it's okay." Luochio turned around and took out a bottle of water. He put the bottle beside Lizzie and then looked at Yui. "Let's go to the last seal point. We can't let the unknown parties exert any pressure on it." The boss of the club left with Miss Maid. Lizzie would soon recover and wake up. She wouldn't know what she had experienced. As for Luochio, he didn't want to help Su Zijuan, nor would he stop Xiang Lu. He just didn't want to see the city that gave birth to him become a victim of the confrontation between the two parties. So he and Yi came to the third seal point, the deep underground of the city, a place that never saw the light of day. It should be very dark here. But here there was light, a very bright light. However, it was not the golden light emitted by the seal, but the light source called spiritual light, the light of the young and strong spirit vein itself. "It's so beautiful." Yi sighed softly. They were like countless flowing gases, but also like liquid water. They seemed to be bound by something, and flowed slowly in an orderly manner. Inside, countless specks of light flickered like stars, like a silver river of stars. The spirit vein was as big as a river. It was the first time for Luo Qiu to see something that only appeared in myths, so he was quite fascinated. He took Yi and crossed the underground river in front of them. The spiritual vein seemed to be attached to the underground river. At this time, a water column suddenly shot out from the flowing underground river, turning into a platform that caught Luo Qiu and Yi. Finally, it continued to rise, sending them to the nearest place to the underground ley line. Luochio couldn't help but reach out to touch the spiritual vein. When his palm went deep into the vein, Luochio suddenly lost his mind. He stood there quietly, as if his eyes could no longer see anything. Yui opened her mouth slightly. She could feel that there was something wrong with her master, something very wrong. She looked at Luochio. His eyes began to moisten, and a drop of tear fell from his eyes. He was crying. This was the first time that Miss Servant Girl saw it with her own eyes. A bunch of black flames suddenly burst out in Yuye's palm, and then two more. Yui opened her hands slightly, and the black flames on both sides began to become fiercer. She didn't need to know why her master was crying. She only needed to know that this spiritual vein made her master cry, because it was unforgivable. Don't. At the moment when the flame was about to touch this spiritual vein, Luocio reached out and grabbed Yu Ye's palm. His palm gently covered her palm, putting out the black flame. Luocio seemed to have turned around. He looked at Yu Yi and whispered, Don't hurt it. Master, I'm fine. Luocio sighed softly and then smiled. He grabbed Yu Ye's palm again and slowly put her palm into the spiritual vein. Let go, feel. She would do as her master said. No matter what he said, she would do it. So she closed her eyes and used the soul in her body that gave her all the ability to think and act, to feel seriously. From barren to green, from barren to fertile, from barren to gradually showing the first pair of footprints, the second pair of footprints, many footprints. Sweat, songs, lights, the lights of thousands of families. Joy, sadness, happiness, sadness, smiles, crying faces. Different faces, different times, different clouds, different winds. Clouds gathered and scattered. Do you feel it? Luocio whispered in Yu Ye's ear. Its memory, the memory of this city, the memory of this land, its history, its everything, everything. From nothing to something, as if he had seen all the changes of this land, this city, from nothing to something, as if he had seen the growth of a life. Yu Yi opened her eyes and said in surprise, It has consciousness. Luocio nodded gently. Just like a baby, a magnificent soul is gestating in its body. It will mature and release unimaginable brilliance. Luocio raised his head, looking at everything he could see in this spiritual vein, even if it was only a very small part of it. He said, I want to see it. You accompany me. She found a bottle of water and found the place where she slept. But the most surprising thing was that her injuries seemed to be completely healed. Li Zi began to think about many possibilities, but she seemed to have no other clues except this bottle of water. But she guessed that it was not the female monster she saved who came back to save her. But who could have saved her? A kind person passing by? A kind person with an ulterior motive? Or a bad person with an ulterior motive? Someone she knew? Someone she didn't know? Li Zi shook her head. She had tried to wait here for a long time, thinking that she could see the person who saved her. But as time went by, Li Zi could feel that she couldn't see him. She didn't die. It seemed to be something to be happy about. But Li Zi didn't look too happy. When it was almost dawn, Li Zi touched her stomach and decided to leave this place, because she knew that she would be hungry with just a bottle of water. Oh, I suddenly want to eat the porridge made by Sister Ren's baby. But the breakfast by the river is also very good. I have mixed feelings.